Boom. Flames erupted from the muzzle. The bullet came out of the chamber. The movement that was incompatible with the environment caused countless birds on the surrounding branches to fly up in fear. Some small animals in the jungle were also frightened. The leader, the old woman in red, fired without hesitation and aimed at the skulls of Natasha Romanoff and Chu Mu. She wanted Natasha Romanoff and Chu Mu to die in the same painful way. Obviously, this old agent was not trying to scare Natasha Romanoff before. For the Red House, Natasha Romanoff was just a costly tool. There will be losses if you kill them. But it's not entirely impossible to give up. As the roar of gunshots rang out, Natasha Romanoff, who had sharp perception and reaction, trembled all over and closed her eyes. At the moment, her mood was very sad. I also laughed at myself for overestimating my own value. Sure enough, I was not good enough to bargain with the Red House. While Natasha Romanoff was laughing at herself, she also felt an unprecedented relief. In her mind, she began to recall her various experiences after becoming an orphan. Such a miserable world. Why bother with it? Natasha, who seemed to have thought of everything, just felt enlightened. The sparking bullets were spinning in the air, and several old women felt that the two of them were dead. However, because the other people present were just ordinary people. So, no one has the ability to see that at the moment when the bullet flies, the reflection of the bullet is not only clearly visible in Chu Mu's eyes, but also the speed of spinning in the air is as slow as a turtle. The time that ordinary people cannot react can be extended infinitely in Chu Mu's eyes. Bullets. Not 1/10 as fast as the flash. Neither is the power. Chu Mu could completely ignore this kind of damage. However, because there was a little loli in front of him, Chu Mu still hit Natasha Romanoff with a speed that no one could see or react to when the bullet was about to touch Natasha Romanoff's forehead. He held the high-speed flight bullet in his hand. Hey, why are there always people who don't like to listen to my advice? I already told you that this is not a wise choice. Chu Mu sighed heavily. He played with the twisted warhead in his hand. Several old women in red not far away stood motionless as if they had turned into sculptures. World. It seemed to become extremely quiet at this moment. Natasha Romanoff was determined to die calmly, but she waited for a long time before realizing the silence. The expected death did not seem to envelope her. Did the instructor change his mind? Or was the shot just now a warning and a scare to himself? Natasha Romanoff didn't think there was anything wrong with the instructor's marksmanship in the Red Room. If a few instructors are determined to kill someone, they can kill them accurately from a distance of several thousand meters. Natasha Romanoff slowly opened her eyes with trembling eyelashes. She had no idea what was going on, and after waiting for a long time, she did not die, and the instructor in the Red House did not fire a second shot or say any warning. How is this going? Natasha Romanoff opened her eyes, and after seeing the scene in front of her, she was stunned for a while, and then she showed an extremely incredible expression. His eyes widened as well. The eyes were full of surprise and uncertainty. The scene presented in front of Natasha Romanoff seemed completely beyond her cognition. Several skilled and ruthless Red Room instructors were all frozen in place like sculptures, and the expressions on their faces no longer changed at all. It's like it's frozen. Photo. Natasha Romanoff can see the leading bishop, the gun in his hand still emitting light black smoke. However, there was no movement at all from the instructors in the Red Room, and they couldn't even feel that they were still alive. This situation was completely beyond Natasha Romanoff's cognition. What just happened? Natasha Romanoff opened her mouth in a daze, even though she had received the most professional training since she was a child, and had an adaptability and analytical ability that surpassed many adults. But, faced with such an incredible situation, Natasha Romanoff still felt that her brain was a little insufficient. Can't understand it at all. It seems that your wish to commit suicide through them. Has failed. Chu Mu's slightly playful voice happened to be remembered behind Natasha Romanoff at this time. Sudden movement. Natasha Romanoff was like a frightened little rabbit, suddenly excited, jumping forward a few times, and then looked back at Chu Mu in surprise. Did you do it? You. What did you do to them? Natasha Romanoff is not an idiot. Although she cannot understand what is happening now, she can still judge who caused such a strange situation. The brain is racing. The young Black Widow remembered Chu Mu's strange dodge when she tried to sneak attack Chu Mu before. She felt her scalp numb and her heart was filled with shock and uncertainty. What kind of character did I stop on the road? Bad people naturally deserve the punishment that bad people deserve. I agree with what you said at the beginning. These old women who kill people if they disagree are indeed bad people. Chu Mu chuckled and raised his eyebrows. He said as if he was feeling emotional. Fortunately, it was me you bumped into. I know how to deal with bad guys best. While talking, Chu Mu passed Natasha Romanoff in front of him and walked towards his off-road vehicle. Ah? Natasha Romanoff was stunned for a long time after hearing Chu Mu's words. Because you are a hero. So you know how to punish bad guys. In the eyes of the young Black Widow, an innocent light similar to that of little Spider-Man flashed slightly. After all, she is still a teenage girl, and children in the Marvel Universe will hear many stories and legends about heroes no matter what era they are. No, 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 although in the place where I live recently, many people want to make me a hero, but... A bright smile appeared on Chu Mu's face, which can make many future generations suffer from Homelander phobia. The kind of sunny smile that makes people feel numb. The truth is, I'm much worse than the bad guy. In fact, as Chu Mu's words fell, there was a black deathly energy surging in his eyes that ordinary people could not see. Bang bang bang, several crisp explosions sounded in succession. Before Natasha Romanoff could figure out what Chu Mu's words meant, she was startled again by the explosion of Yaru Chi. Looking suddenly in the direction of the sound, Natasha Romanoff discovered with a horrified expression that the sound she just heard was actually the sound of the heads of her instructors exploding. They wanted to blow our heads off, and now I'm going to kill them in the same way. It's fair. Chu Mu's calm words made Natasha Romanoff feel her hair stand on end. This man. Definitely not a good thing. Such an understatement decided the fate of 4 or 5 people. This seemingly peaceful man simply revealed an aloofness that was even more frightening than the instructors. It is a feeling that is not expressed in words, but can be clearly perceived. If I had to describe it forcefully, Natasha Romanoff felt that the lightness of Chu Mu's voice when she spoke could only be compared to the gods in myths and legends. It was a feeling as if the fate of all living beings could be easily controlled. Is this worse than the bad guys? At the moment, Natasha Romanoff couldn't help but become nervous again. The man in front of me said he was a bad guy, so would he easily get rid of me too? This was the thought that Natasha Romanoff couldn't help but think about. Even though she had seen through life and death just now that she found that all the instructors who were chasing her were dead, she once again ignited her desire for freedom and survival. Although a few instructors do not represent the entire Red House, at least she does not have to worry about being found today and can have enough time to get rid of the influence of the Red House. When I think about this situation, Natasha Romanoff's heart became hot. These years, she has been trying to get rid of the control of the instructors, but although she is extremely outstanding among her peers, like others, she has never achieved success. The instructors in the Red Room, much more powerful than them. No matter how hard they, the students, try to plan their escape, the final result will always be found and captured by the instructors without exception. Most of the time, Natasha Romanoff, like most people, felt desperate for such a depressing life, but she never thought that she would unexpectedly gain true freedom today. The instructors died, at least for a long time. No new instructors will be sent out to find her. Looking at the headless corpses on the ground and the trickling blood flowing on the ground, Natasha Romanoff, who was filled with joy, suddenly felt a very strong sense of unreality. These were all powerful things in her heart. Are the instructors like demons? Once upon a time, many girls like her feel that these demon instructors are simply omnipotent and terrifying. These instructors can lead a group of children and easily enter and exit the enemy's rear. In terms of training and torture, no girl can succeed. Of resistance. However, just a few such powerful people. Today it was solved so easily. The death was so silent and simple that Natasha Romanoff suddenly discovered that the lives of the so-called strongest agents turned out to be so fragile. He is no different from ordinary people. The mind of Natasha Romanoff. I only felt an indescribable impact. It's like cognition and worldview have been subverted. At the same time, the psychological shadow that these instructors had turned into, the huge rock and mountain that was weighing on my heart, also shattered into pieces. The so-called Red Room special training and Black Widow training and other programs now all seem like a joke. In the face of that kind of force that is so weird that it is impossible to react or resist, can the agent's skill, no matter how powerful it is, be able to resist death for one more second? Natasha Romanoff doesn't have to ask anyone for the answer. She can answer it herself. Cannot. From the frozen expressions on the faces of the previous instructors, Natasha Romanoff could clearly judge that the top instructors had no time to react under the methods of the mysterious man in front of them. Just for a moment. There is no time to use the skills and means that you have learned for a lifetime. Even someone like her, who had witnessed several instructors' heads being shattered, could not understand what that invisible and intangible power was. Definitely. There are still guesses. This is super ability? After a long time, Natasha Romanoff finally adjusted her mentality completely. She raised her head and looked at Chu Mu not far away, with a complex expression on her face. Today's era. The existence of mutant has not yet been revealed. However, because the agents in the Red Room are different from ordinary people, Natasha Romanoff, who is the key training target of the Red Room, also came into contact with a lot of knowledge in the Red Room that ordinary people cannot access. There is some information about super ability. There is a group of extremely rare super ability people on this planet, who possess unimaginable power and can even control various elements in nature. Once upon a time, Natasha Romanoff once thought that this kind of information was probably the same as the existence of aliens. It was just the result of intelligence agencies listening to some legends and catching rumors. However, until today, Natasha Romanoff suddenly realized. It turns out that the world is really not as simple as she and most people imagined. The good-looking young man in front of her fits the description of a person with super ability. If it is such an unscientific existence, then the reasons for the death of several instructors can be easily explained. Super ability. It's normal that ordinary people can't understand it. Natasha Romanoff analyzed the information she obtained and found that forbidden animal husbandry is probably very powerful among super ability people. After all, if every super ability person is so powerful, then why do countries need to cultivate agents? Cultivating all super ability people will definitely play a better role. You can definitely understand that. Chu Mu did not deny Natasha Romanoff's inquiry. He already has the identity of hidden super ability. Compare that to impersonating a mutant. As a super ability person, Chu Mu is completely genuine. Ah. Well, it turns out. Your ability is really amazing. Natasha Romanoff didn't expect that Chu Mu would admit it so directly. She was a little uncomfortable and quickly praised Chu Mu. This kind of praise comes from the heart, but also has some intention to please Chu Mu. Now that all the instructors are dead, from Natasha Romanoff's point of view, the only person who may pose a threat to her is to kill a few of the instructors. As an orphan who has been subjected to inhuman training since childhood, Natasha Romanoff will not suddenly have a deep trust in Chu Mu just because Chu Mu saved her. Are you afraid that I will attack you and turn you into a headless corpse? Chu Mu could see Natasha Romanoff's worry at the moment without even needing to read her mind. As an agent who has not yet officially debuted, her emotional masking ability is still somewhat lacking. Definitely, it may also be the reason why Natasha Romanoff's brain was overloaded with too much information received today. You can also read minds? Natasha Romanoff was startled. He didn't realize that it was his expression that betrayed his psychology. However, her overreaction can be regarded as a blind cat encountering a dead mouse. Chu Mu does have the ability to read minds. It's not important. What's important is that if you still want to die, I can help you along the way. Chu Mu spoke to Natasha Romanoff in a slightly evil voice. He deliberately lowered his voice and made a serious expression, which really startled Natasha Romanoff. The teenage Black Widow subconsciously took a few steps back. No. Don't bother you. I like living, and living is beautiful. Natasha Romanoff looked a little confused and shook her little head crazily at Chu Mu. Okay, that's as you wish. Chu Mu shrugged and spoke in a brisk tone. He had no intention of getting rid of Natasha Romanoff, an old acquaintance. S.H.I.E.L.D. would serve him no less in the future. Natasha Romanoff watched Chu Mu walk towards the off-road vehicle. Her expression became a little confused at first, and then she bit her lip and mustered up the courage to speak to Chu Mu. Thank you for getting me out of my nightmare. Thank you for saving my fate. Natasha Romanoff expressed her sincere gratitude to Chu Mu. Killing several instructors in the Red Room may not be a big deal to Chu Mu, but her fate has undoubtedly changed dramatically because of Chu Mu's move. You're welcome. They also want to take action against me. I just let them know how kind my reminder is to them. Chu Mu looked at the wailing souls in the Kingdom of the Dead, with a faint smile on his face. He had already walked to the side of the off-road vehicle. Originally, Chu Mu wanted to leave directly by car. He also has no intention of continuing to interact too much with Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. Jungle Road environment. He also believes that future top agents can handle it well. However, after opening the car door, Chu Mu saw the girl who had finished thanking her, standing in a daze on the grass with traces of mud and blood, as if full of confusion about what to do next, and he suddenly realized Natasha Romanoff in the normal timeline should not have escaped the control of the Red Room at this time. Ordinary kids. When you are more than 10 years old, you will still feel confused about the future. Not to mention the girl in the red room who was orphaned since she was a child and was raised as a murder tool. Chu Mu realized that maybe she should give Natasha Romanoff a direction. Otherwise, who knows if we can see Black Widow in S.H.I.E.L.D. after returning to the future. This S.H.I.E.L.D. agent with good abilities is much easier to use than other agents. I'm a really kind person, Chu Mu sighed. He closed the car door again and walked in front of Natasha Romanoff. You feel like you are suddenly free. While you feel happy, you don't know what to do in the future. Chu Mu pointed out the state of Natasha Romanoff at the moment. Are you reading my mind again? Natasha Romanoff's eyes widened. Her answer. It also shows that Chu Mu's guess is not wrong. Listen. I don't have time to tell you any major principles of life. I can only tell you the fact that your instructor was not wrong before. You have far better ability than most people. If you make good use of this ability to do what you want to do, your life will become more exciting than ever. It is rare for Chu Mu to instill in others chicken soup for the soul without arsenic. The effect is naturally not very good. After listening to Chu Mu's words, Natasha Romanoff not only did not suddenly realize like those supporters of success masters, but instead showed an extremely bitter smile. Ability. Murder, fraud, calculation, and theft. Such ability will only make people despise and fear it. I don't think it is a gift from God. Natasha Romanoff's wry smile was full of self-deprecation. He hated the so-called murder agent very much, and his mood suddenly became extremely low. Besides, you, like my instructors, didn't say that I am an unqualified agent, with emotions that an agent should not have. Natasha Romanoff has definitely not forgotten her previous heroic performance. But in exchange for some criticism and education from Chu Mu, she felt that she could remember this incident for the rest of her life. Definitely, at the moment, this thing is just being used by Natasha Romanoff to deny her ability. Why do you have to be obsessed with becoming an agent? Chu Mu raised his eyebrows, as if he didn't understand Natasha Romanoff's way of thinking. What's the meaning? Natasha Romanoff looked at Chu Mu in shock. I mean, no one has stipulated that you have to be an agent, right? Without the person who controls you, you can pursue whatever life you want to pursue. Teacher, gardener, scholar, chef, you can try anything you are interested in. Chu Mu's voice was neither urgent nor slow, but it made Natasha Romanoff wake up suddenly. Woo. Yes, the identity of agent was originally imposed on me by the Red House. Why? Why should I be obsessed with this identity? It seems that you understand. When you do things that interest you, your ability is not just an agent, and what you learn is not just something that can be used to kill people. Chu Mu's voice seemed to have some special magic power, hitting Natasha Romanoff's heart, making Natasha Romanoff feel that her mind was clearer than ever before. Can I? Natasha Romanoff's voice was full of expectation, but also a little hesitant and unconfident. Apart from training day after day, she had never had any expectations. Definitely, remember, ability is given by God, and greatness must be earned by yourself. You have the right to decide how to use your ability. Chu Mu raised his hand, throwing the object in his hand at Natasha Romanoff. Although Natasha Romanoff was in a very uneasy mood, the skills she had trained over the years allowed her to subconsciously catch the things thrown by Forbidden Shepherd. This is. A trace of horror flashed across Natasha Romanoff's eyes. She saw what was in her hand. It was a twisted warhead that had changed its shape. Almost instantly, Natasha Romanoff connected this warhead with the bullet fired by the chief instructor. The reason why the bullet did not hit her before was that she suddenly became cheerful. No wonder he died too. It turned out that the bullet fired by the chief instructor was directly caught by the handsome man in front of him. God! How fast the bullet travels! Someone can actually catch a high-speed flight bullet. Natasha Romanoff, who had not seen much of the world, only felt the unspeakable shock in her heart. She looked at the warhead in her hand blankly, and her heart was filled with turmoil. Various disciplines. Natasha Romanoff, who is very good at studying, knows very well how strong physical fitness is required to do this. It's really so unscientific. Buzz, just when Natasha Romanoff was feeling dreamy, the sound of an off-road vehicle starting brought Natasha Romanoff back to reality from her unbelievable thoughts. She looked up. When I went there, I only saw Chu Mu's off-road vehicle, which quickly disappeared from my sight. The man didn't seem to want to take her on the road with him. To be great, you need to strive for it yourself. To do what you want to do. Looking at the black spot in the distance on the road, Natasha Romanoff did not feel any melancholy or loss. She murmured to herself what Chu Mu had just said. her eyes brighter than ever before. This sentence seemed to open up some long-standing throbbing in her heart. "I'll do it." Natasha Romanoff carefully put the twisted warhead in her hand into her arms. This warhead was not just a gift from the man whose name he didn't even know before he left. At the same time, it was also proof of her new life. Obviously, Chu Mu had changed some history, but no one could tell what impact this change would have on the future. Off-road vehicles speed on the road. Chu Mu was walking through an area with cold temperatures and thick bushes, and a full day had passed since the unexpected encounter with Natasha Romanoff. He didn't know how much his remarks would change Natasha Romanoff, and what an unusual impact they would have on Natasha Romanoff's life. Meeting Natasha Romanoff, an old acquaintance from the future director and level 10 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., was just a small episode in the past for Chu Mu. Compared with those who are very interested in Natasha Romanoff and regard Natasha Romanoff as a goddess, Chu Mu has not thought about what will happen with Natasha Romanoff. Taking Natasha Romanoff on the road is not out of the question. There had been such a big commotion before, and history had definitely been changed. Chu Mu would not dwell on the serious consequences of his current influence. He just felt that it was not necessary, and he didn't want to be a nanny for vulnerable ordinary people again. Natasha Romanoff is also different from Evelyn. Chu Mu has absolutely no use for Natasha Romanoff. Well, the aspect that the experienced driver may have misunderstood must be excluded. In fact, Natasha Romanoff is indeed not Chu Mu's favorite style. Chu Mu thinks it is not even as good as Captain America's old lover Carter. At least Carter, as an iceberg beauty, looks quite cold in the past, can make people want to conquer, and has the charm that many men will be attracted to. Definitely. Chu Mu didn't go out to meet Carter and give Captain America a cuckold idea. He just listed the types of things he was interested in. Speaking of aloof beauties, Polaris is actually also a good choice. I have to say that Magneto's genes do have something, and none of the daughters born are bad looking. If it is possible, Chu Mu doesn't mind becoming Magneto's son-in-law at all. When the time comes, Wanda sweetly calls him brother-in-law. Isn't that a scene that many people have dreamed of? Speaking of which, in my time, I didn't seem to have heard anything about Polaris. Maybe it was because my time had not yet reached the time when Polaris was born. Tisk tisk. Magneto is really old and strong. Chu Mu is holding the steering wheel with one hand and leaning against the car window to support his head with the other hand. Nowadays, he likes to look at the scenery outside the window during his leisure time. Nowadays, Chu Mu is still located on Sulian's land. As the largest country on Earth, Sulian has 1/6 of the world's land. He estimated that it would take several days to get out of Sulian. Chu Mu did not encounter any battlefields along the way. After all, the war at this stage would definitely not reach Sulian's homeland. Chu Mu was in no hurry to rush to New York. He also enjoyed a lot of scenery along the way that he would never appreciate in the future. It can only be said that nature, which has not yet been severely damaged by humans, does have a different kind of beauty. Moreover, the customs of some places are also very unique. In the few small towns we met along the way, Chu Mu went to visit them for a while. Food is good. Very brown bear style. Pickles are also quite refreshing. Although people in the town were wary of outsiders, Chu Mu did not encounter too much hostility due to his oriental appearance. I have to make some repairs in the next town. Tomorrow is the time for me to draw a new identity again. The ritual of bathing, changing clothes and washing up must be indispensable. Chu Mu is a person who pays great attention to metaphysics. He is calculating the metaphysical operations in his mind and praying that he can draw a good identity tomorrow. Even if we don't talk about higher level status. Any platinum level status would be fine. For example, the slightly inferior status of bronze and silver from the gold level will not be much improved for the current Chu Mu. Anyone with status above platinum level should be diamond level. Chu Mu was guessing about the almighty I in his mind, and while he was distracted while driving, something about promoting the importance of safe driving suddenly happened. Boom. I don't know if the jungle on Su Lian's side is poisonous. In the woods in front of Chu Mu's off-road vehicle, another figure suddenly appeared. However, this figure's luck was obviously not as good as Natasha Romanoff's. It hit the off-road vehicle firmly and instantly dented the front hood of the off-road vehicle. Huge amounts of impact. Not only did the windshield of the off-road vehicle explode in an instant, but it also caused the off-road vehicle that was originally driving smoothly to lose control of its direction and skid wildly. Wow. Wow. Chu Mu turned the steering wheel, constantly trying to adjust the condition of the off-road vehicle. However, it doesn't help at all. With no other option, Chu Mu could only resort to his all-purpose method, psychokinesis, which directly hovered the crazy skidding off-road vehicle. Very abrupt stop. Just having an off-road vehicle violate the rules of physics. The figure that hit the front hood of the off-road vehicle would definitely not be as lucky as the off-road vehicle. He was directly thrown away due to inertia and hit a big tree hard. The force was so great that it directly broke an old man's heart that was as thick as a fat man's waist. Even trees are like this. The figure that hit the tree was naturally not in good shape either. Chu Mu even heard a series of sounds of broken bones. For people who smashed their own cars, Chu Mu certainly won't use psychokinesis to help. Didn't you see that a valuable off-road vehicle was smashed and scrapped by an unknown guy? Although Chu Mu stopped the off-road vehicle, he failed to save the off-road vehicle's engine. The smashed front end of the off-road vehicle was not only severely shape-shifted, but black smoke was still coming out of it. It looked like it could explode at any moment. If you want to repair it, it will definitely not be possible. In this era, there is no widespread repair service for this kind of vehicle. Damn. Who is this? For 2 days in a row, Chu Mu was suddenly attacked by people in the jungle. His mentality was a bit shattered. He just thought that there might be tens of millions of people hiding in Sulian's jungle. He opened the car door and jumped out of the car with some annoyance. Walked towards the direction where the figure who smashed the big tree lay. This is a man. Now he is not sure whether he is alive or dead. His head is bruised and his back is facing up, lying motionless on the ground. Chu Mu just walked up to the man and wanted to turn him over. Wow, before Chu Mu could take action. Another figure, moving vigorously and full of speed like a beast, suddenly sprang out from the woods. This figure pounced directly on Chu Mu. The figure that jumped out was as fast as lightning. But it also carries a strong wind full of heavy feeling. Extremely cold. Unlucky guy. Since we bumped into each other, then you should accompany my brother on the road. The figure rushing out had a rough voice. His appearance and style are also full of tough guy style, with thick hair like beast fur all over his face and even on his neck. This man was as flexible as a hunter, and his hands were not only broad but also like sharp claws. He waved his hands and lunged at Chu Mu with a grin. The look in his eyes was full of cruelty, and he obviously wanted to break Chu Mu into pieces. Facing a menacing attacker, your heartbeat is too noticeable. Chu Mu didn't show any surprise at all. He just slapped the attacker with his backhand and knocked away the person who tried to attack him. I would have spotted you a long time ago. Chu Mu's speed was countless times faster than the attacker's, so much so that the attacker didn't react at all and simply flew backwards. Su Lian's jungle is indeed poisonous. Not only can little Lolita and old women emerge from it, but now 2 strong men have emerged. If such a scene were spread to the UC shock department in later generations, the news headlines of 2 men actually fighting naked in the jungle would definitely be shocking. Puff. The attacker was constantly spitting blood in midair. That scene. I'm so miserable. The man who was slapped away by Chu Mu had an extremely rough and wild appearance, but this did not prevent him from acting like a dog at the moment. Compared with the previous man who was hit by an off-road vehicle with his arms full, it is hard to say that the man who was whipped away by Chu Mu would have suffered less serious injuries. Chu Mu's power was well understood, even though he had already controlled his own strength and did not directly blow up the attacker into a blood mist that filled the sky. But the guy who wants to sneak attack Chu Mu. It still flew backwards in an even more exaggerated way than Thomas's spin. And this man's tough guy face was swollen like a pig's head, and all the teeth in his mouth were knocked out. 1, 2. Dozens. The sky was filled with broken teeth, with streaks of bright red blood in the mouth, scattering in the air as messily as raindrops. Count that number. Chu Mu estimated that the attacker must not have many teeth left in his mouth. Asshole, smash my car. Before the sneak attacker landed, Chu Mu's figure instantly appeared below the sneak attacker, and then he gave the sneak attacker a fierce kick. He still doesn't use much strength. After all, it would be too cheap to directly kick the opponent to death. His car is a customized special limited edition off-road vehicle. You know, I hate it when people smash my car. Chu Mu's cars were always smashed in the future time and space, but she didn't expect that she would still be unable to escape this fate when she returned to the past. Is this the so-called metaphysical manifestation of destiny within the cone of light? Anyway, Chu Mu was very angry about the car being smashed. Therefore, in the frightened state of the rugged man who kept falling, he lifted up again. Bang bang bang. Although Chu Mu controlled the power of his legs, he still kicked out thousands of times in 1 second. The rough man flew out again with a more ferocious roll than before. Have you ever seen a big windmill? At the moment, the rolling speed of the rough man was no different from that of a spinning windmill. A large mouthful of blood spurted out from the mouth of the rough man. Ah! The rough man let out an extremely painful roar, and the last few teeth in his mouth flew out. Chu Mu had accurately kicked him in the face thousands of times before, turning him into an unprecedented pig-headed face. Kakaka! The rough man rolled and crashed into the forest. There were constant sounds of trees being knocked down, and the bones of this guy's body were also making sounds of breaking. Wow! After knocking down more than a dozen big trees, the rough man fell miserably to the ground. At the moment, he was completely distorted and changed beyond recognition. The fierce and ferocious posture before was completely gone, and the whole person looked as miserable as if he had been blasted by a cannonball. Not only was his whole body cracked and bleeding, his bones and joints were distorted and shapeshifting, but even his head had a hole opened due to hitting a sharp stone. Just because of this kind of injury, the rugged man was already much more miserable than the man who was thrown out of the jungle and smashed the Chu Mu off-road vehicle before. Roar! The rugged man who fell to the ground, after his body trembled violently for a while, unexpectedly did not fall into coma or die due to excessive injuries. After he lifted his body from the ground with some difficulty, he roared at Chu Mu like an enraged beast after being injured. That kind of direct and bloodthirsty eyes, full of hatred towards Chu Mu, didn't look like the posture that a normal human should have. This does not look like a normal person. A normal person would be so seriously injured that even if he did not die, he would never have a chance to stand up. All the bones and joints in the whole body are shape-shifted. A guy who can still stand up and roar in this situation. Chu Mu narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at the bloodthirsty rough man not far away. Mutant. Chu Mu saw the wounds on the rugged man's body, as well as the broken bones and joints that were quickly returning to their original shape. Such fast self-healing ability. Plus the look and hands of a rugged man. It also allowed him to roughly guess the identity of the attacker in front of him. You are also a mutant, right? With such speed and strength. The big hole in the rugged man's head is also healing at an exaggerated speed. His beast-like eyes stared straight at Chu Mu, with a little fear in them, but more of an inexplicable excitement. Just now, Chu Mu made him feel the pain he had not seen for a long time, as well as the oppression of approaching death. This feeling made him feel a little uneasy and very excited at the same time. I crave danger. An opponent like you is very good. It allows me to enjoy the joy of fighting and also gives me a greater sense of accomplishment after tearing you to pieces. The rugged man said with a ferocious smile on his face. He stared at Chu Mu with vicious eyes. He twisted his neck, and the mouth that had lost a single tooth actually regrown a row of sharp teeth at an extremely fast speed. Yes, G-Man's teeth. It's as sharp as a carnivore. It seems that my guess was correct. Chu Mu looked at the rugged man who was self-healing at an alarming speed, and became more and more certain that he was a rugged man. In today's era, there are not many people who can possess this self-healing ability. Combined with the appearance of a rugged man, it is natural that he can confirm the identity of the rugged man. Sabretooth. Victor Creed. This is a mutant with similar abilities to Wolverine's variant. Sabretooth has tiger claws and fangs, and also has the same self-healing ability and immortality as Wolverine. However, he is much higher than Wolverine in terms of strength, speed, observation and perception. It is estimated that self-healing ability is slightly inferior to Wolverine, but the gap is not big. After all, Wolverine and Sabretooth are brothers with the same origin. Kindness. At least in the Marvel movie universe. Both have the same father. It's just that Wolverine is the child of a rich wife and a gardener who had an affair, while Sabretooth is the offspring of the gardener and his wife. Because Wolverine was mistakenly identified as the son of a rich man, Wolverine's living conditions have always been many times better than Sabretooth's. It is precisely because they received completely different educations and lived completely opposite lives that the two people have different personalities and ways of doing things. In many universes, Wolverine and Sabretooth are both rivals who love and kill each other. This feeling has a strong Naruto flavor. The drama of brothers falling in love and killing each other seems to be very popular in any world. Chu Mu couldn't help but sigh in her heart, looking at the sword tiger who had almost healed all his injuries and exuded eagerness to fight. He didn't take Sabretooth's hostility into consideration. Instead, he turned back thoughtfully and looked at the man lying behind the SUV not far away. As expected. Except he was still unconscious. The injuries all over the body of the man lying dead on the ground have been completely healed, and there is no sign that he was still seriously injured and dying. With such performance, the identity of the guy who smashed the Chu Mu off-road vehicle is naturally self-evident. A man lying unconscious on the ground, the identity speaks for itself. Has the same self-healing ability as Sabretooth. And he also fell in love with Sabretooth. There is only one character in the Marvel Universe who meets the requirements, and that is Logan, the famous tragic character in X-Men. Logan is the Wolverine that many people are familiar with, that powerful lone wolf whose whole body has been transformed into a metal skeleton and has indestructible claws. Definitely. This power is only limited to the scope of the Earth. Regardless of the specific universe, Wolverine's mutant ability is not even at the alpha level. His strength lies in his own will and experience, and he can compete with the Avengers' top combat power. As for why Wolverine Logan was beaten so badly by Jian Shihu, it is entirely because Sabretooth is more restrained in terms of ability than the Golden Wolverine Logan. It's different from Magneto's attribute restraint. Sabretooth has the same self-healing ability as Wolverine Logan, but it is much stronger than Wolverine Logan in terms of strength, speed, and thick skin. Naturally, it can have an advantage when fighting Wolverine Logan. After all, one is a tiger and the other is a wolf. It is normal for a wolf to be unable to defeat a tiger. In fact, it can also be explained in a slightly metaphysical way. Wolverine Logan is the younger brother and Sabretooth is the older brother. It seems that the elder brother ravaging the younger brother is a law in the world? Anyway, if we had to list a list of popular characters in the Marvel Universe, this list might list dozens or hundreds of characters. But no matter how the number of people on this list is reduced, Wolverine Logan's name will definitely be at the top. Even if he can't catch up with Tony Stark's Iron Man's ranking, the difference won't be too big. Emu's voice of looking forward to Wolverine's return before traveling through time is undeniable. Excluding some LSPS who only like female superheroes, Wolverine Logan can definitely enter the top 10 on the popularity list. Some people like Tony Stark because of his cool armor and cannot resist the romance of mechas. Others think Tony Stark has a charming personality. However, people who like Wolverine Logan definitely don't just like his extraordinary ability. Most people are also affected by the tragic story of Wolverine Logan. And no matter how cruel life torments this lonely lone wolf, he will never lack a kind and righteous heart. It's hard not to like a character like this. Compared with those characters who seem to have the aura of the protagonist, Wolverine Logan definitely brings much stronger inspiration and appeal to people. At least Chu Mu before time travel was a person who admired Wolverine very much. Therefore, you want to kill the guy over there? Chu Mu pointed to Wolverine Logan lying dead in the distance, and showed Jian Shihu's signature bright smile. Maybe I have to play a guest role as his savior. Chu Mu also needs something in return, and he can do whatever he wants. Whether it's saving people or killing people, he can do whatever he wants. Okay, this does seem to have a bit of a Homelander feel to it. But this is also a fact. According to Chu Mu's current strength, he can run rampant on the Earth even more than the real Homelander. No, I don't just want to kill him. What I want is to kill you. Your head will also become my trophy. Sabretooth licked his lips and showed an extremely ferocious smile. He would never let go of anyone who dared to beat him into a pig's head. And even if Chu Mu has no grudge against him, after he knows that Chu Mu is powerful, he will attack Chu Mu without hesitation. There is no other reason. Sabretooth is the kind of person who likes excitement and pursues thrills. Killing powerful opponents can bring Sabretooth unparalleled happiness. Have to say, Sabretooth is definitely a complete pervert. Any opponent who cannot kill him is, in his opinion, prey that will eventually be killed by him. He has traveled to many places around the world over the years and has met many mutants with powerful abilities. However, regardless of whether those mutants provoked him or not, whether they were able to beat him seriously to death or not, in the end they all became the dead souls under his tiger claws. This is also the reason why Wolverine Logan broke up with Sabretooth. Sabretooth is extremely bloodthirsty and has an antisocial personality that is extremely inhumane. Hey, you people from the past. Why don't you know how to cherish life? The last person who wanted to kill me is not in a good situation now. In Chu Mu's eyes, Sabretooth was already a dead tiger, so he did not hide his identity as having traveled back from the future. Definitely. Although Chu Mu's words were very clear, according to Sabretooth's IQ, he obviously would not have thought of something as complicated as time travel. Little trash. I will let you know what despair is. Sabretooth was very dissatisfied with Chu Mu's attitude. He was irritated by Chu Mu's slightly contemptuous and calm attitude, and he rushed towards Chu Mu like a cannon. High speed. It also set off a very strong wind. Otherwise, it would be wrong to say that his IQ is low. This is definitely a sign of a short memory. In the eyes of others, Sabretooth may be extremely fast, but from the perspective of Forbidden Shepherd, Sabretooth is simply committing a crime with its IQ. This guy should be called a Sabretooth pig. Chu Mu was speechless. He was just about to slap Sabretooth away with his hand again. Suddenly, Sabretooth actually showed a smart smile, and then in the process of running, he suddenly changed his direction and circled around Chu Mu. Alright. I can tell. Sabretooth doesn't have no IQ at all. It's just that his IQ is probably not more than. His strategy of not choosing a head-on collision with Chu Mu was indeed a good one. However, this behavior of circling Chu Mu like a retarded person was very annoying. However, Sabretooth felt that he had found a way to restrain Chu Mu. Ha ha ha. I have a lot of power, but I feel uncomfortable when I can't use it. If you are careless, I will tell you what cruelty is. Sabretooth's tone was full of triumph. He was moving around Chu Mu, and his figure seemed to be extremely flexible. The tiger seems to be indeed a cat. Sabretooth's combat experience is obviously not weak, and he also knows how to use words to disrupt Chu Mu's thinking and mood. However, does this method really work for Chu Mu? Would such a method be useful to Chu Mu? This is a very good question. About this question, Chu Mu only wanted to answer 2 words, Joker. Fancy and fancy. Chu Mu's expression is simply not too exciting. In his eyes, Sabretooth's speed is similar to that of a tortoise. His seemingly flexible tossing and turning is like someone slowly jumping left and right in front of him. At the moment, Sabretooth doesn't look too funny. How to describe this situation? It's like the unknown Chunin in Naruto, who activates the Kirigakure technique against the god of ninja, and still thinks that the god of ninja is already a turtle in the urn. It's true that it's a bit ordinary and confident. Don't you know, even if I step back 10,000 steps, even if I can't see you, I still have the ability to lift the table? Chu Mu's voice fell. Psychokinesis directly condensed into a terrifying big hand, and with another slap, Sabretooth was slapped into the ground like a flea. Boom. It's like a meteorite hitting the earth. Huge amounts of movement. The entire land showed a huge palm-shaped pit. Dust and smoke filled the air. Sabretooth, who was originally strong, was knocked into the ground like a meat pie without being able to react at all. The soil sunk several meters deep. One can imagine how terrifying the force hitting Sabretooth's body was. Although Chu Mu still didn't use all his strength, Sabretooth, who was like a fly, really made him a little irritated and increased his strength. It really just increased the strength a little bit, but Sabretooth was really too weak, and the whole person was almost destroyed by the slap of psychokinesis. There were countless cracks on the entire body, and blood spurted out like blood mist, instantly filling the air in large swaths. If it weren't for Sabretooth's extremely strong self-healing ability and his physical strength being thicker than Wolverine Logan, he would probably be torn apart by a slap. Even with Sabretooth's bloody nature, he couldn't help but let out an extremely painful cry at the moment. He felt unprecedented pain. What kind of method is this? Sabretooth couldn't understand Chu Mu's attack method at all. He only felt that his eyes were dark, and death was closer to him than ever before. To be honest, with you being such a weak being and being so noisy, my tolerance for you has reached the stage of impatientness. Chu Mu walked to the front of the pit and looked at it with an indifferent expression. Sabretooth in the pit. Damn it. What Sabretooth hates most is someone looking down on him. This is probably related to his personal experience. He gritted his teeth and tried his best to support his broken body. His face, which had been shape-shifted for most of his face, was raised with difficulty to stare at Chu Mu. At the moment, Sabretooth's face and exploded eyes were full of anger and resentment. People like him. Having a slave-like childhood, he is the most sensitive. The reason why he likes to kill people is to enjoy the feeling of controlling other people's destiny. Strong self-esteem. Naturally, he can't bear to be looked down upon by others. You can't kill me. I will tear you apart eventually. Sabretooth roared madly at Chu Mu about his self-healing ability and confidence. He firmly believed that those who could not kill him would eventually be killed by him. The self-healing factor was working in the body, quickly repairing his broken body. People like to stay trapped in their own perceptions. Do you really think that you are an immortal being? There was something as dark as ink shining in Chu Mu's eyes, but ordinary people couldn't see it. They could only feel the dark coldness from his cold eyes. Sabretooth felt a little palpitated, but before he realized the danger was coming, His brain was invaded by Chu-Emu's thoughts. Ah! Sabretooth roared in pain again, and his body that had just been propped up fell to the ground with a snap. His two tiger claws were holding his head tightly, and he was rolling on the ground in pain. This was definitely the most intense pain he had ever endured. The brain matter is dissolving. Sabretooth suffered much more than the broken body. The tragic wails came one after another, echoing continuously in the illusion of ice and snow, and a large amount of blood mixed with brain matter flowed out of Sabretooth's facial features. His brain is being damaged by Chu-Emu's psychic power. However, the powerful self-healing ability is also repairing his damaged brain at the same time. This self-healing ability ensured Jian Shihu's life, but it also prevented him from comatose and could only constantly endure extreme pain. No. You. What did you do to me? Sabretooth roared with all his strength, asking Chu-Mu hissingly and heartbreakingly. His entire head had been scratched miserably by his tiger claws. Severe pain. It even made Sabretooth want to rip out his own brain. Sabretooth's strength was already very strong, and Sabretooth, who was completely tortured and in pain, simply tore off his own scalp. The skull became faintly visible at the moment. Sabretooth's self-healing speed is very fast, but his crazy self-mutilation speed is even more terrifying. Such an appalling picture. It can definitely make many people feel creepy after watching it. Fortunately, there is only one Chu-Mu around besides Sabretooth himself, so it won't leave a psychological shadow on anyone. As for Chu-Mu, his heart was completely unmoved by such a scene. This is for my innocent dirt bike. Chu-Emu's tone was very calm. He still couldn't forget his damaged car. Torturing Sabretooth like this was a bad breath for his off-road vehicle. I am immortal. While Sabretooth was losing his mind and inflicting crazy self-mutilation as if Cthulhu had invaded, he still firmly believed that his self-healing ability could allow him to survive this torture. Want to refuse death? You didn't ask for my permission. The ink color in Chu-Emu's eyes seemed to become more intense in an instant. The power of death began to invade Sabretooth's body. Under the influence of the power of law, the so-called self-healing factor is simply a complete joke. What? Me? What happened to me? Sabretooth's body is aging rapidly, and the speed of self-healing has stopped abruptly. Sabretooth, who is constantly bleeding from his orifices and self-harming, also feels the changes in his body. He finally couldn't hold back the fear in his heart anymore. How could the terrifying guy in front of him have so many weird and incomprehensible methods? Has your own ability been taken away by the other party? Ah. Sabretooth, who gradually lost the help of the self-healing factor, only felt that death was closer than ever before. His gradually blind eyes only saw Chu-Emu's slow approach. Do you want to twist my head off? What a coincidence, I also have similar hobbies as you. A joking figure rang in my ears. Sabretooth's body was convulsing violently and constantly failing. He wanted to make a sound, but he could only make a low and hoarse roar. But the way I like it. May be a little different from yours. Chu-Emu's voice sounded again, and Sabretooth felt a big hand covering his head, where his brain was boiling. Then, he felt that the power above the big hand is slowly getting stronger. Have you ever seen a watermelon break? I'll let you experience it for yourself. Along with the tiny sounds of bones exploding, Sabretooth's already blurry head was slowly squeezed by Chu-Mu and exploded. Not only were the fragments of the skull flying everywhere, but the brain matter in the brain, which was under great pressure, also spewed out as if the pressure had been released. The surrounding trees and grass were all contaminated with white substances mixed with bright red color, but these contaminants were not able to contaminate Chu-Emu's body. Under the barrier of psychokinesis, Chu-Emu's neat clothes were still spotless, forming an extremely sharp contrast with the bloody environment around her. A corpse without a head. It hit the dirty ground weakly. There is absolutely no life left. Jian Shihu does possess the self-healing factor known as the immortal gene, however, the self-healing level of this self-healing factor obviously has its limit. Even if Chu-Mu did not use death rules, Sabretooth would not be able to survive without his head, and the self-healing factor would not allow mutant to grow a new head. The reason why Chu-Mu used death rules before was just to let Sabretooth feel the pain more clearly, and feel the fear and torture caused by death. I am really a very vindictive person. Chu-Mu watched calmly as Sabretooth's frightened soul was taken in through the gate of the kingdom of the dead. The soul of a mutant. The improvement in his death card's engine can only be described as minimal. But it would also be nice to be able to increase the diversity of species in the kingdom of the dead. Let's see if the tragic old Logan will seek revenge from me for his brother. Chu Mu took out a piece of paper and wiped the dirt on his hands. Immediately, he walked towards the unconscious Wolverine. The scrapped off-road vehicle parked quietly on the side of the road. Black smoke was still rising from the completely shape-shifted front hood. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind, when Chu Mu passed the off-road vehicle and walked towards Wolverine Logan, he directly raised a hand and touched the body of the off-road vehicle. For a moment, the off-road vehicle that was damaged but still looked relatively complete was immediately annihilated and turned into dust that was immediately scattered by the wind like gravel. Even though this off-road vehicle was worth a lot of money, since it was a broken thing, Chu Mu didn't feel distressed at all when he destroyed it. There is no way to repair the cars of the future in this era. Keeping them in your hands will only add to your unhappy heart. Why does my car always get into accidents for no apparent reason? Chu Mu wondered if he might have some kind of 100% accidental damage to the vehicle. Curse. Just like the one in 100,000 Bad Jokes, it's 100% like catching a sword with bare hands. That's too ridiculous. Chu Mu was amused by her own whimsy. He walked up to the unconscious brother and used his psychokinesis to turn Sabretooth's brother over. As expected, it was indeed Wolverine Logan. With the same rough face, Wolverine Logan looks much more handsome than Jian Shihu, and his whole person looks like a mature man. Due to the serious injury he suffered from Sabretooth just now, although Wolverine Logan has self-healed, his clothes and face are still stained with blood. If it weren't for the X gene like the self-healing factor, just the amount of blood stained all over his body would probably make Wolverine Logan bleed to death. Definitely, for Wolverine, whose self-healing ability is exaggerated, this loss of blood is insignificant. It is actually incredible that Wolverine Logan will be so poor in the future. Has this kind of ability to sell blood and organs already made a fortune? In developed countries, there are worries about the identity of mutant being exposed and the body's genes being used for research, so wouldn't there be no worries at all when going to some remote countries? Golden Triangle or something. If you like other people's kidneys, organs like kidneys are definitely very scarce. I can only say that Deadpool is more discerning in how to make money. Slept very soundly, Chu Mu perceived that Wolverine Logan's vital signs were stable. The reason why Wolverine Logan has never woken up is entirely because he suffered some brain trauma, which is why he has been sleeping for so long without waking up. People like Wolverine Logan and Sabretooth who have self-healing factors, whose brains are as fragile as ordinary people, should be their most fatal weakness. Although damaged brains can be repaired, they will also endure extreme pain, and the weaker Wolverine Logan will also enter protective sleep. From this point of view, Wolverine Logan's physique is obviously not as strong as Sabretooth. In normal history, Wolverine Logan suffered a head injury and fell into a coma for a long time on more than one occasion. In one of them, she lost a large amount of memory due to being attacked by a special bullet. It can be said that the brain is the unified weakness of self-healing mutants. Wolverine Logan was able to overcome this weakness because her entire body was transformed, and her original bones were replaced with adamantium. However, the current Wolverine Logan obviously hasn't gotten that evolution yet. To some extent, Officer Stryker of the Marvel the United States military is also the little guy who made Wolverine Logan. Wolverine's combat effectiveness is not even as good as Sabretooth's. No, look at Wolverine Logan now. After being punched and kicked by Sabretooth, he was seriously injured and fell into a coma. How could he still have the perseverance to face the powerful power of Phoenix in the future? This thing should have been inserted into Logan's brain just now. Chu Mu raised his hand, and a metal fragment stained with blood and brain matter on the ground floated into his palm. This metal fragment came from an off-road vehicle. Front hood. Obviously. Collision with off-road vehicle. It was indeed a serious injury to Wolverine Logan. Wolverine Logan has not yet been transformed. His skull is still bone, and he has not yet become the indestructible adamantium of the future. An implantation of adamantium allows a bone wolf to directly evolve into Wolverine, so the mechanical ascension of weak flesh and blood still makes some sense. Chu Mu was thoughtful, then he closed his palms and squeezed gently, and the metal scraps in his hands were directly crushed into a ball of metal dust. Roar. Just when Chu Mu was about to kick Wolverine Logan awake and talk to Wolverine Logan about compensation and the grim reality that he killed his brother, something appeared in the jungle again. But this time it was not a person, but a big brown bear, roaring and rushing out of the jungle. It probably smelled the blood of Wolverine Logan and Sabretooth, so it looked for them hungry and prepared to have a feast. Tonight's dinner seems to be in order. Chu Mu directly used psychokinesis to immobilize the big brown bear, and then gave the big brown bear a pleasant neck twist. The poor big brown bear originally wanted to come to the buffet, but he never thought that he would become Chu Mew and enjoy local delicacies tonight. Bear thing. It is indeed considered a local characteristic of the Sulian area. Chu Mew raised his head to look at the darkening sky, then casually lit up a bonfire beside the highway. This seems to be my first time doing camping. When Chu Mew was not in a hurry, he could naturally enjoy the jungle at night. It is not unreasonable for many people in the world before time travel to like to survive in the wilderness. This situation of setting up a campfire and barbecue in the open-air wild environment is definitely unique and fun. The stars in the sky as companions can make people feel a feeling as if the soul has been cleansed. Zilla zilla. The fluttering flames constantly grilled the meat, and the alluring fragrance continued to permeate the jungle. It was a pity that no animals continued to come to Chu Mew to increase the variety of food. Bear meat is not suitable for barbecue, but as long as the technique is right, the taste will actually be good. Very good too. If you want to have a wonderful life experience in the wild, cooking skills are also indispensable. Chu Mew undoubtedly does not have to worry about anything at this point. He has the status of a genius chef, and there are still a lot of seasonings in the alien world. Cooking a barbecue bear meat is obviously no problem. In fact, Chu Mew not only used the most delicious parts of the big brown bear for barbecue, but also took out a large earthen pot and put all 4 bear paws in it to stew it. After a while, the aroma of barbecue and stewed bear paws was constantly permeating the entire jungle, and even Wolverine Logan, who had been in a coma, seemed to be attracted. Wolverine Logan, who had his eyes closed tightly, sniffed, and there was obvious swallowing movement in his throat, and then he slowly woke up from his coma. Wolverine Logan covered his uncomfortable head and sat up from the ground. He looked around at the jungle and his slightly confused eyes gradually focused. "I actually got the paper back." Slightly amazed. With an incredulous tone, the first words Wolverine said after waking up immediately caught Chu Mew's attention. "Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. When you are seriously injured and then go into coma, shouldn't you say something like, 'I'm still alive. I'm not dead,' after you wake up? The reaction would be bigger. You should immediately enter the police station after you wake up. Combat status team pair." He was so slow to react, and it took him a long time to come back to his senses, and then he looked around for a while and then said, "I'm really back. Number matter how you think about it, it doesn't fit the scene. It's not like he was beaten from the decedent. The soul of the country returns from the brink of death. Etc. Soul return." Chu Mew originally looked at Wolverine Logan with a very surprised expression, but after suddenly thinking of a possibility, his eyes immediately started to flicker. "No way. Is this really what I think it is? Who are you?" Wolverine Logan gradually adapted to the physical condition. He actually discovered Chu Mew at this time. It must be said that his condition must be very wrong. With such a big bonfire and such a big person, a normal person should have noticed it long ago, but Wolverine Logan was delayed for several minutes. Consciousness gradually became clear. Wolverine Logan's sense of crisis also came online immediately. He quickly stood up and assumed a defensive posture ready to fight at any time. Facing the unfamiliar Chu Mew, this lone wolf finally showed due vigilance. "Relax. Okay. You were unconscious there for several hours just now. If I wanted to do something bad to you, how could you still be alive today?" Chu Mew looked peaceful and drooped his eyelids, constantly turning the willow in his hands. Bear meat pierced with branches. He had some guesses about Wolverine Logan's condition in his mind, but he remained calm on the surface, showing a look of disdain towards Wolverine Logan. "Speaking of which, you should call me your savior." Chu Mew kept turning the bear meat, and his skillful technique was more professional than many barbecue masters. The flames interacted with the bear meat, producing the Maillard reaction that represents deliciousness. It is a chemical change that occurs when proteins and carbohydrates are heated, which is the truth of the meal. Chu Mew saw Wolverine Logan coming back again swallow secretly. Only this centenarian with a somewhat serious expression did not look at the barbecue. Wolverine Logan showed a little hesitation on his face. A savior? Wolverine Logan is still wary of Chu Mew. This is a habit he has developed over the years. He will never let down his guard until he knows whether Chu Mew is a friend or an enemy. "You saved me." Logan frowned slightly in confusion, thinking hard, and finally began to recall what he was doing at this point in time. He was fighting in World War E. And he also broke up with his own brother due to different views. His brother, who felt betrayed, planned to get rid of his disobedient younger brother. During this period, I was still in Sulian, and I had some conflicts with Sabretooth. Sabretooth almost killed me completely. Wolverine Logan muttered something under his breath. Chu Emu's eyes flickered again. It can only be said that Wolverine Logan is obviously not a shrewd person. He is a pure warrior, so he is really not good at concealing secrets. One sentence. There is so much information leaked inside. You stopped Sabretooth. That burly man. Wolverine Logan originally wanted to say Sabretooth, but he felt that Chu Mu most likely didn't recognize Sabretooth's name. Due to the sensitivity of the identity of mutant, Wolverine Logan didn't mention it too much, but just gave Chu Mu a slightly confused test. Definitely. Chu Mu nodded slightly, still flipping the barbecue in his hand. He already felt very in control of Wolverine Logan's current state. Have to say, this is indeed a bit nonsense. Well, yes, you did save my life, thank you. Wolverine Logan recalled, looking at Chu Mu with a strange look. But still sincerely thanked Chu Mu. The wariness against Chu Mu was obviously weakened by most at this time. Something is wrong. Wolverine Logan's expression gradually became a little complicated. As his memories recovered, he could tell that Chu Mu was not lying, because without Chu Emu's intervention, he would have been caught and tortured by Sabretooth for several times during this period. The month is right. However, just because this memory was revived. So, Wolverine Logan found it increasingly difficult to understand. Why did a young Oriental man become his savior during his experiences during this period? This doesn't match up with his memory. Katie's ability can actually allow us to go back in time. Wolverine Logan's memory gradually became clearer as he woke up. But no, this time is wrong. I shouldn't come back at this time. And I shouldn't meet any Oriental people. Although Wolverine Logan did not mutter to himself at this time, he couldn't speak, but the thoughts that came to his mind were clearly seen by Chu Mu. Really? Chu Mu already knew it in his heart. Just as he had guessed before, Wolverine Logan's state was indeed not a normal state, but a rather bizarre situation. Chu Mu also recalled the story about the X-Men in his mind. He was very sure that Wolverine Logan today is the state of the X-Men in Days of Future Past. It was a time that took place much further in the future than Chu Emu's life, and the X-Men encountered a real genocide crisis. The mutants were poisoned not only in their food and water sources, but also caused the various powerful mutant abilities to decline or be lost one after another. And the remaining mutants are also constantly hunted by the new special combat robot, Sentry, created and commanded by Bolivar Trask, the founder of Trask Industries. It was a terrifying machine that even Professor X and Magneto couldn't defeat. Sentinel can detect any form of mutant type, and their genes allow them to instantly transform themselves to defeat hostile mutants. This is a terrifying killer weapon created after Mystique's genes were cracked. Mutant begins to become endangered. Their only hope is to use Shadowcat Katie's ability to make Wolverine Logan, who lives long enough, go back to the past and change history. Yes. The Wolverine Logan that Chu Mu encounters now is just like him, a future person who has returned to the past from a long time ago. Chu Mu is a normal time travel. Logan, on the other hand, is just his soul traveling back to his past body. Reverse the future and come to me. In fact, Chu Mu was also a little confused. Not that Wolverine Logan is from the future, in this situation. He actually guessed it just now. The reason why he felt a little bit dumbfounded in his heart was entirely because from Wolverine Logan's very active thinking, he felt Logan's extremely complicated emotions at the moment. This Wolverine Logan who was responsible for saving the future. It seems that I wore it at the wrong time. From Wolverine Logan's shallow thinking, Chu Mu even saw some fragments of the future. Obviously, his guess about Wolverine Logan's identity was not wrong. This is a Wolverine Logan from the future time and space, and it is suspected that he has traveled through the wrong time and has not arrived in the past where he should have arrived. Chu Mu also remembers that the scene where X-Men reverses the future should have happened decades later. At this point in time, Magneto and Professor X may not have met yet. It must be said that Wolverine Logan's state at the moment aroused Chu Mu's interest. I see that you seem to be a little uncomfortable. Do you need any help? Chu Mu calmly raised his head and glanced at Wolverine Logan, who was constantly murmuring to himself, not far away. This lone wolf warrior faced time, the ability to disorder, as obviously not very good. Thank you. But you probably can't help me. Wolverine Logan politely refused Chu Mu, whose mind was obviously a little messed up at the moment. The incredible thing like time travel shocked him. However, he was supposed to be sent to the designated time, but he returned to the past even longer ago. This undiscussed situation made him temporarily I don't know what to do. If it comes to fighting and killing enemies, Wolverine Logan is fully qualified. But he has no experience at all in this kind of situation where he has to go back to a certain point in time alone and need to complete a task. What should I do now? Waiting for Professor X and Shadowcat to take him back. How long do we need to wait? Wolverine Logan is constantly weighing and thinking in his mind, which is convenient for Chu Mu to read his thoughts. He probably never dreamed that the first person he met after going back to the past had the same ability to see through his thoughts as Professor X. Isn't it a desperate time teleportation in times of crisis? Chu Mu also saw many scenes of the future through Wolverine Logan's thoughts. What made him feel a little surprised was that the reason why Wolverine Logan was forced to travel through time was different from the story in X-Men Days of Future Past. The mutant crisis is indeed still a mutant crisis, but before Wolverine Logan traveled through, the mutants had not yet reached the end of their rope. This time Wolverine Logan's time travel is entirely due to a research on Shadowcat Katie's ability that Xavier's school did in advance just in case. Definitely, if the past can be changed, Wolverine Logan is also responsible for preventing Mystique from being caught. Mission. Originally, the time Xavier's school preset for Wolverine Logan was the time node that X-Men returned to in Days of Future Past. The crisis that Mutant encountered was also Sentinel. Since Mystique fell into the hands of the Military Research Institute, Mystique's genes were thoroughly studied by the Military Research Institute. Many people think that Mystique's ever-changing ability is only good news for men. However, in fact, Mystique's genetic ability can unlock the nightmares of all mutants. It is after integrating Mystique's genes that Sentinel has kaleidoscopic shapeshift, the ability to change its own attributes according to the enemy's ability. Although at the time of Wolverine Logan's life, the Sentinel had just been put into use and had not yet reached its final state of terror, Xavier's school was also aware of the terror of the Sentinel and wanted to experiment with whether it could change the past. We haven't reached the end of our rope yet, but we are sending Wolverine Logan back to the past. This shouldn't be because of my influence. Chu Mu's eyes flickered slightly, and he quickly made a judgment in his heart. He has the uniqueness in the entire timeline, so there will be no future that has been affected by him, so the plot change of reversing the future must be consistent with him. It doesn't matter much. Definitely. Because of Chu Mu's indirect influence, the historical process of the Marvel Universe has obviously changed a long time ago. Therefore, it is obviously reasonable for the story of Days of Future Past to undergo some changes. The Sentinel Chu Ji saw when Wolverine Logan was thinking was also in a different form. More like some kind of mecha that can be piloted by humans. Chu Mu didn't think too much about it, just thinking that this was what the early Sentinel looked like. However, in fact, if the mystique of Chu Mu's time were to come, they would definitely find that the Sentinel of Wolverine Logan's memory is very similar to the submadra armor she obtained. Obviously, Chu Mu was not able to fully see how many changes had taken place in the future. While Chu Mu was grilling meat and peeking into Wolverine Logan's shallow thoughts, Wolverine Logan also bit her tongue and decided to take a further step. It doesn't seem like it's a bad thing to re-experience the past. No matter what, Xavier's school will always find a way to bring him back. The previous tasks given by the college could not be completed, and it could only be blamed on the technical methods of the college, which had nothing to do with his professional level. Think of this. Wolverine Logan seemed to feel relieved all of a sudden. Can you tell me what year it is now? Wolverine Logan's memory can only roughly remember what happened in the past. I still can't remember the specific time clearly. After all, not everyone can have the same photographic memory as Chu Mu. From Wolverine Logan's point of view, he has to remember the specific time now so that when he goes back, Xavier's school can adjust related technologies based on this specific time. Wolverine Logan actually doesn't know much about scientific methods and research on mutant ability. Understand? He just knew the dates would be useful. That's a good question. Chu Mu is essentially a time traveler. He originally didn't know what time it was, but fortunately he heard it mentioned by the residents of the small town before. After telling Wolverine Logan the year, month and day, Chu Mu seemed to be kind, and lifted up a bunch of sizzling skewers that had been grilled. I'm not a nosy person, but I can guess that your situation is not good. Do you want to eat a bunch of delicious roasted bear meat? Chu Mu handed the meat skewers to Wolverine Logan, who was not far away. His friendly attitude made Wolverine Logan not too wary. I smelled the fragrance just now. Wolverine Logan was originally awakened by the aroma of barbecue. He touched his belly. He took the skewers without any politeness and started eating. As a possessor of self-healing ability, Wolverine Logan is not worried about being poisoned. This period. There are not many poisons that can knock down a mutant like him. It's not like the future, where someone will shoot him an anesthetic that can knock down an elephant. Very good taste. Wolverine Logan gave a heartfelt compliment. He remembered that during this period, he was still living a military life where he had one meal but no one. Definitely, with DeLong Country's barbecue skills, even if you grill a shoehorn, it will be delicious. Chu Mu also stuffed a skewer into his mouth. As his teeth tore into the pieces of meat on the willow branches, and his mouth was filled with the aroma of barbecue, Wolverine Logan was indeed not complimenting his cooking skills. Want a drink? Chu Mu took out 2 glasses and the bottle of wine that could never be finished. It would always feel like something was missing if you didn't drink some wine when eating barbecue. Where did you hide this wine just now? Although Wolverine Logan was eating barbecue, her eyes were always on Chu Mu. He watched with some astonishment as Chu Mu took out the wine glass and wine, but he didn't see clearly where they had been placed before. Ha ha ha. What do you think? Chu Mu poured wine into both glasses. Almighty I. The wine rewarded by the mission is better than many classic aged wines. The aroma directly made Wolverine Logan, who has a tendency to drink alcohol, sniff. The bold man took the delivery from Chu without any hesitation. The wine glasses are served. You must be a magician. Wolverine Logan made a decisive comment, and then took a sip into his mouth with an expression of great enjoyment on his face. I haven't had such a good drink in years. Wolverine Logan sighed with emotion. He has been running around since Mutant began to encounter crisis. Why are you from the Dragon Kingdom coming to Sulian? Wolverine Logan was waiting for his return, so he also started chatting with Chu Mu. He found a big stone and moved it directly in front of the bonfire, sitting opposite Chu Mu, sipping wine and grilling skewers. The stewed bear paws in the big earthen pot also attracted his attention. Because of some unexpected circumstances, Chu Mu chuckled naturally, and then looked at the large earthen pot in which the bear paws were stewed. That thing needs to be stewed for a while to be delicious. It's not done yet. Wolverine Logan also nodded and returned his attention to the barbecue. It was also because of some accidents. It seems that we are quite destined. Wolverine Logan raised the cup in her hand towards Chu Mu. This kind of fate is indeed wonderful. Perhaps you are more destined than you imagined. Chu Mu's tone was full of meaning. In a time and space, 2 time travelers appeared at the same time, and these 2 time travelers also met together. This situation is definitely more incredible than ordinary people winning the lottery jackpot. Chu Mu thinks this is definitely a very rare fate. But since Wolverine Logan didn't know about Chu Mu's situation, it was obvious that Wolverine Logan was not able to understand the deep meaning in Chu Mu's tone. Yes, fate. Wolverine Logan and Chu Mu clinked their wine glasses, and both of them drank all the wine in their glasses. Chu Mu added another glass to Wolverine Logan. Nice drinker. Wolverine Logan saw that Chu Mu was still not blushing or out of breath after drinking a large glass of wine, and immediately smiled and praised Chu Mu in a low voice. For people who like to drink, it is definitely something that makes the drinker feel very happy if the person they drink with has a good drinking capacity. Sometimes, the way to gain the favor of a Jew Mungza is that simple. You are not an ordinary person, right? Ordinary people can't deal with my brother. Wolverine Logan was also very curious about how Chu Mu saved herself. The atmosphere for drinking was good. He also asked a question that had been hidden in his heart for a long time with a little tentativeness. Before, Wolverine Logan was only temporarily attracted by the fact of time travel. Now, Wolverine Logan once again thought of Sabretooth, who fell in love with and killed him. No one knows the power of Sabretooth better than him. On the terrible battlefield, Sabretooth is also a more terrifying battlefield meat grinder than him. Ordinary elite soldiers would be directly tortured and killed by Sabretooth in just a few encounters. Wolverine Logan had no idea what method the man in front of him used to save himself from the bloodthirsty and cruel Sabretooth. To know, Sabretooth is the kind of madman who will never reason. If you want to save people from Sabretooth, you must first have the strength to defeat Sabretooth. It can't be the kind of strength that can barely be suppressed. Otherwise, it will only arouse Sabretooth's bloody nature. As possessors of self-healing ability, Wolverine Logan and Sabretooth have already killed many enemies in the past who are just stronger enemies. Looking at Chu Mu's strong physique, Wolverine Logan admitted that this is the perfect body shape a man should have. But just having such a physique, he will definitely not be Sabretooth's opponent. Has a little strange ability, maybe not an ordinary person. Chu Mu chuckled and handed Wolverine Logan another barbecue. Act in full set. As an Oscar-level actor, Chu Mu will definitely not reveal any flaws. That person is your brother. With all due respect, when he wanted to kill you, he didn't look like your relative at all. Chu Mu pretended to be confused. Although I really don't want to admit it. But he is indeed. Wolverine Logan's eyes flashed slightly as he took the barbecue. He wanted to ask Chu Mu if he was the same mutant as himself. But some future experiences still made this man hesitate to speak. How did you defeat him? Wolverine Logan also planned to test it out. He had to be completely sure that Chu Mu and himself were the same type of talent. His body is indeed weird, but it's not a problem for me. Chu Mu raised an eyebrow and answered Wolverine Logan honestly, if that guy is really your brother, maybe we can still be regarded as enemies now. As soon as these words came out, Wolverine Logan was stunned. What's the meaning? He couldn't understand Chu Mu's words. In Wolverine Logan's opinion, Sabretooth was beaten away by Chu Mu. He never thought that someone could kill Sabretooth in this era. Sabretooth has more skin and bones than him. It's much harder, and bullets pose no threat to Sabretooth. There. Chu Mu didn't explain too much. He pointed directly to the jungle in the distance, letting Wolverine Logan see Sabretooth's tragically dead body. Although Sabretooth's soul was sucked into the realm of the dead, Sabretooth's mummy-like body with shattered head remained in place. Ah! Wolverine Logan's eyes shrank like needlepoints in an instant. He never expected that he would see Sabretooth's body. The powerful Sabretooth was actually killed. Exclamation mark. All of a sudden, in addition to being indescribably shocked, Wolverine Logan also felt a little bit horrified. Treating yourself to a barbecue and actually having the ability to kill Sabretooth. Looking at the place where Sabretooth died, it was a mess. The huge amounts of potholes made Wolverine Logan feel his scalp numb. What a great person. How could it cause such huge terrain damage? Wolverine Logan's expression changed one after another, and at this moment, Chu Mu's voice with a deep meaning suddenly rang in his ears. How's it going? Now that you've had enough to eat and drink, do you want to avenge your brother? Chu Mu's voice had no ups and downs, but after seeing the terrain destruction effect caused by Chu Mu and the tragic death of Sabretooth, Wolverine Logan immediately felt his scalp numb. He thought that Chu Mu was ready to take action after eating and drinking. In a long time, he had seen too many ruthless characters who seemed very kind at first. Without exception, those ruthless characters like to act as they please, and are like scary bosses in the game world. I wouldn't do that. Wolverine simply raised his hands, making a gesture of surrender. To be honest, if it were Wolverine Logan who was really young, he might still have brotherly feelings for Sabretooth, but at the moment Wolverine Logan's soul came from more than 100 years later, and the era he lived in had already destroyed Sabretooth in an unknown amount of time. For Sabretooth, the old enemy in the past, and the future Logan who now controls the body of young Wolverine, all he has is some memories. Even if there is no intuition that Chu Mu cannot be beaten by himself, the act of Sabretooth being killed by Chu Mu will not cause him to be angry towards Chu Mu. Even Wolverine Logan will also feel that Sabretooth is to blame for his current fate. He knows better than anyone how cruel and troublemaking Sabretooth is. Sabretooth's current fate is nothing more than the way Sabretooth used to treat those innocent and weak people. Karma. Wolverine Logan is very open-minded. But it didn't show the reaction Chu Mu expected at all. That's it. Okay. There was a bit of disappointment in Chu Mu's tone, which Wolverine Logan sensed very keenly. Wolverine Logan was speechless. He just felt that the guy in front of him who saved him was indeed a big boss with a very bad taste. Do you really want to kill yourself? Fortunately, I didn't give him a chance. Wolverine Logan secretly thought in his heart that someone who could kill Sabretooth could never be a weak person. He knew very well what kind of strength Sabretooth had. To know. In the near future, after being transformed into a human with full-body adamantium, his combat power increased many times. Even after encountering Sabretooth, he could not defeat Sabretooth. Super strength, super endurance, super defense, and powerful self-healing ability are enough to make Sabretooth a nightmare for countless mutants. The only shortcoming of people like them is their brains. Sabretooth also died of lost brains now, but how can Sabretooth, who is experienced in combat, obediently let others cut off his head? The guy in front of him definitely has the strength to crush Sabretooth. Wolverine Logan made a reasonable judgment in her heart. He felt incredible. This era. In addition to the old professor, the damn Magneto and the Black Emperor, there is actually another extremely powerful mutant? I actually didn't know this person existed at all. Wolverine Logan comes from the future, so he knows a lot of information about the past. Now a super strong man he doesn't know appears out of thin air, making him feel extremely dreamy. There was even some suspicion that he had not traveled through time but was just having a weird dream. To know. Even the future Avengers and Thanos crisis, he knows very clearly. But during World War E, there was a super strong man who left no information at all in history. This situation was simply unbelievable from Wolverine Logan's understanding of the past. It's completely beyond Wolverine Logan's understanding of the past. You know, he plays more of a history teacher role in X college. For the history of this world, he researched it better than most historians. Maybe it's the butterfly effect. Wolverine Logan made a guess in his mind, but soon he denied this very outrageous possibility. That's not right. I just came back and I haven't done anything yet. How could I have changed so much in the past? Wolverine Logan looked at Chu-Mu with something wrong in her eyes. With doubts, with confusion, and even with a very inexplicable surprise. He didn't know that his thoughts were always on display in front of Chu-Mu. Do you want another bunch? Chu-Mu suppressed a smile in her heart. But on the surface, he still handed Wolverine Logan another skewer of roasted bear meat. As Wolverine Logan's thinking was constantly active, he gradually learned more about the future from Wolverine Logan's superficial thinking. One thing to say. Now Chu-Mu is also surprised. Wolverine Logan doubts his existence, so why doesn't he not understand Wolverine Logan's future? This Wolverine Logan has experienced many major events in the Marvel Universe, however, those major events were all historical developments that seemed unprecedented. Although Chu-Mu has the uniqueness of time, those time nodes that have been affected by him should also have a considerable impact on the future. Don't say anything else. Just say Wanda. Chu-Mu exists. He would never let Wanda join the Avengers, nor would he let Wanda be a widow, but in Wolverine Logan's memory, when Wolverine Logan recalled the Avengers, Wang Da's figure still appeared in her mind. This is obviously quite different from Chu-Mu's judgment. Maybe he didn't travel through time, but traveled through time plus parallel space? Chu-Mu also made his own guess in his mind. The two people who seemed to behave very normally had complicated thoughts in their hearts. Chu-Mu, like Wolverine, quickly rejected his guess. Shadowcat's ability. It has not yet touched the multi-universe level. Moreover, Xavier's school in the parallel world will most likely not choose reverse the future at such an early time point. The most important thing is that Chu-Mu also saw the name of Umbrella Biotechnology in Wolverine Logan's memory. This is even more impossible to exist in a parallel universe. There is another interesting situation. That's in Wolverine Logan's memory. Umbrella Biotech. Had been bankrupt for years before Wolverine Logan crossed over. He is the Umbrella Biotechnology that he thinks of when he thinks of various big crises, yes. Umbrella Biotechnology triggered a major event in Wolverine Logan's memory. Resident Evil. Chu-Mu's eyes flickered slightly for a moment. From Wolverine Logan's memory, he got a situation that surprised him. A certain research by Umbrella Biotechnology caused a terrible crisis that affected the entire state, which was also the reason for Umbrella Biotechnology's bankruptcy. In this future, there is also no sign of Chu-Mu. But this is much easier to explain than Wanda's situation. After all, the influence of Chu-Mu's existence will only affect the time Chu-Mu has already experienced, and Wolverine Logan's memory of the accident at Umbrella Biotechnology is still several years away from the era when Chu-Mu lived. To some extent, Wolverine Logan's memories are not necessarily true history. It's like Schrödinger's cat. Before Chu-Mu reaches that point in time, everything at that point in time is just an undetermined reality for Chu-Mu. Only when Chu-Mu is about to reach that time, infinite possibilities will collapse and become the only reality under Chu-Mu's choice. This is the quality brought about by Chu-Mu's time uniqueness. Your craftsmanship is really good. Wolverine Logan didn't know that the thoughts in her mind were being browsed by Chu-Mu, and triggered a series of thoughts in Chu-Mu. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little cold, he took the initiative to liven it up. For a guy who doesn't have a high emotional intelligence, praising the other person's craftsmanship is definitely the best way he can think of to liven up the atmosphere. I'm a professional chef. Let's try this braised bear paw. Chu-Mu came back to her senses and temporarily forgot about Wolverine Logan's weird future. He didn't have to pry open Wolverine Logan's memory to see the future. As he said before, Wolverine Logan's memory did not represent the future that Chu-Mu would inevitably experience. It was just Wolverine Logan's reality. This is not a reality that Chu-Mu will definitely encounter. This concept may be a bit abstract, but time is an abstract concept. Gu. Liang Logan was not polite. After passing the stew and bear paws that Chu-Mu had brought, he immediately poured half a bowl of soup into his stomach. People with self-healing ability are so willful that it is impossible for any food to burn their mouths, let alone gastrointestinal touch and esophageal burns. Not to mention hot food, just lava. If necessary, old Logan can give you a drink. I thought you were some kind of bounty hunter. Wolverine Logan said to Chu Mew with emotion as he devoured his food, your cooking skills are indeed amazing. I have also been to the Dragon Kingdom, but I've never had such delicious food there. Probably to take care of Chu Mew's emotions, Wolverine Logan paused for a moment and then added another sentence. Definitely, the food of Dragon Country is equally delicious, at least better than many countries, but it's just not as delicious as what you can make. Sincere emotion. It made Chu Mew chuckle in a good mood. A person can have many identities. Although my cooking skills are pretty good, maybe I really have the identity of a bounty hunter behind my back. Chu Mew said jokingly, thinking of his almighty eye, and always liked to create some Matryoshka doll descriptions every time he was given a new identity. Then I can only hope that there is no bounty on my head. Wolverine Logan also answered cheerfully. He is still a relatively unknown character and often changes his identity, so he knows very well that he cannot have any bounty. As for why his brother was killed, Wolverine Logan also had a guess. He felt that Sabretooth might have wanted to kill Chu Mew, who happened to meet him, so he was killed by Chu Mew. Logan was very worried about Sabretooth's love of killing innocent people. Have to say, Wolverine Logan's guess was pretty close. Before, it was indeed Sabretooth who took the initiative and said that Chu Mew and Logan should die together. No matter what, I want to thank you for your help. Wolverine Logan thought of Sabretooth, and also thought of the past when he was captured and tortured by Sabretooth during this period. He didn't know how much his future would be changed if he was rescued. But Wolverine Logan thinks that being able to avoid some bad experiences in his past is something he is very happy about. You look very happy. However, don't be too happy too early. We may still have an account to settle. Chu Mew's words. Wolverine Logan was slightly startled. What's the meaning? Wolverine Logan doesn't know why. Looked at Chu Mew. There was no encounter with Chu Mew in his memory, so he naturally had no idea what car he had hit. When you and your brother were fighting, you damaged my car, so you have to take me to the destination I want to go to. Is this compensation to me? It shouldn't be too much, right? Chu Mew looked at Wolverine Logan. He was also very interested in Wolverine Logan's situation. Naturally, he wanted to let Wolverine Logan can recall more information about the future by his side. Don't say anything else. In the past time and space. Learn about the uncertain future of the Marvel Universe. It's also quite fun. Although Chu Mew had no intention of forcibly extracting Wolverine Logan's memory to satisfy his curiosity, he still wondered why the future of Wolverine Logan's memory was so weird. I really want to find out. How could Wanda, who has been deeply influenced by Chu Mew, join the Avengers? Wolverine Logan was confused by the facts Chu Mew told. The car was damaged? This is a bit embarrassing. No problem. This is what I should do. It's a very reasonable request. Wolverine Logan quickly nodded and agreed after regaining consciousness. He also didn't feel that Chu Mew was deceiving him. A big boss who can kill Sabretooth doesn't need to lie to him with such words. Therefore, Wolverine Logan did not even ask where the damaged car was or where Chu Mew's destination was. Fang directly agreed to Chu Mew's compensation request. Anyway, in the past now, the time was mistaken by the Academy, and Wolverine Logan is waiting to return, so it doesn't matter where he goes. As for what my past self would think after I go back to the future, well, it doesn't matter. It's normal for alcoholics to run thousands of kilometers away when they're drunk. Anyway, it makes sense for the past Wolverine Logan himself. I remember my car was nearby. Wolverine Logan recalled her past and recalled that during this period, she had a conflict with Sabretooth while driving nearby. Then what are you waiting for? After eating, get on your way. Chu Mew poured 2 glasses of wine again. The two of them had enough to eat and drink. He just followed Wolverine Logan for a few miles, and then he saw the car. Wolverine Logan said. How to say? It's very Wolverine Logan style. This X-Men's past has always been quite shabby, and the car he owns is also a shabby old car that has been through several hands. Fortunately, the battle between Wolverine Logan and Sabretooth did not affect the dark classic car. Wolverine Logan walked up and started the car somewhat unskilledly. Is this really your car? Chu Mew sat in the passenger seat, and when he saw Wolverine's unskilled startup process, he couldn't help but make a joke. Yeah. I just haven't done it for a long time. Wolverine Logan was a little embarrassed, and his memory also revealed the reason why he was not proficient. In future time and space, this Twilight Wolf has been driving an automatic transmission car for many years, so he is naturally very unaccustomed to manual transmission cars that were very inconvenient to operate in the past. Gulu gulu gulu. Fortunately, the dilapidated classic car finally started successfully. Under the strange engine noise, Wolverine Logan drove Chu Mew onto the road. Where is our destination? Only then did Wolverine Logan remember to ask Chu Mew's destination. New York. Suddenly a world map appeared in Chu Mew's hand, causing Wolverine Logan in the driver's seat to look sideways. He took a deep look at Chu Mew. Just driving the dilapidated classic car in one direction. As a driver, Wolverine Logan is definitely a qualified driver who can remember the route without a map. That's all. Neither of them needed to sleep. Chatting along the way. Soon, it was the next day. That is the time when Chu Mew can extract a new identity. This day, Chu Mew waited for a long time. It's finally time for Goldfinger, Almighty Eye, to come into play again. Every time a new identity is drawn at Almighty Eye, all can bring some gains to Chu Mew. This is his foundation in the Marvel Universe, and it is also the biggest Goldfinger that has helped him become the level single universe at such a young age. Therefore, whenever the cooling cycle of Almighty Eye ends and a new identity can be drawn again, Chu Mew can be said to attach great importance to and look forward to it. There is definitely a need for metaphysics. Although he is currently sitting in Wolverine Logan's car and his conditions are limited, Chin Mew still took out a large bottle of mineral water and came out to wash his hands and face. Your status as a magician is really extraordinary. Wolverine Logan looked at the passenger seat from time to time while driving the car. He was a little shocked to see Chu Mew take out the wash basin and a brand new towel out of thin air, and couldn't help but murmured something to Chu Mew in a complicated tone. Wolverine Logan is not stupid. With such methods of creating things out of thin air appearing one after another, how could he not guess that Chu Mew might have some kind of strange super ability? Although being able to defeat and kill Sabretooth has already shown that Chu Mew is not an ordinary person, this scene really makes Wolverine Logan feel real. He is a mutant. Or a special being with super ability. Well, maybe he is a magician similar to Doctor Strange. Wolverine Logan secretly guessed in his mind, but did not confirm or question Chu Mew about his identity. He knew that the issue of identity is quite sensitive for extraordinary people. Because he comes from the future time and space, and is a veteran among the X-Men, Wolverine Logan also knows a lot about the situation on the otherworldly side of the Earth. Magicians, super abilities, mutants, biochemically modified people. Even demons and angels, there is a lot of real information in Xavier's school in the future time and space. When you go out, you must master some convenient tips. After Chu Mew washed his face and hands, he poured a large basin of water directly out of the window. Immediately, he took out another toothbrush and toothpaste, and under Wolverine Logan's frequent side glances, he started rinsing his mouth and brushing his teeth, not at all like he was in the wild. When I stayed in a hotel in the city, I wasn't as comfortable as you are now. Wolverine Logan sounded envious. He really didn't expect that there would be someone in the wilderness who could wash up in the morning so delicately. It's really a long time to see you. Yesterday's dinner seemed to have been cooked with special kitchen utensils and seasonings. Wolverine Logan only thought that Chu Mew was carrying an entire mobile convenience store with him. He had tried his best to use his imagination, but he couldn't imagine Chu Mew carrying it with him. It carries a whole world. No, if the kingdom of the dead is also regarded as the world. What Chu Mew carries with him is two worlds. The things Chu Mew stores in alternate world are even more comprehensive than many large shopping malls. To some extent, survival in the wild is for Chu Mew. It really counts as an outing in which the quality of life will not be affected in the slightest. Humans, when you live in this world, you have to know how to enjoy it. Chu Mew answered with a smile in a good mood, and then watched the countdown of the Almighty Eye, in his mind slowly end. Wolverine Logan wanted to say something else, but as the countdown in Chu Mew's mind gradually returned to zero, the feeling that was so familiar to Chu Mew reappeared. In an instant, the entire world fell directly into a freeze state, and everything fell into a seemingly eternal silence. The universe was waiting for Chu Mew to make a new choice in the Almighty Eye. From Chu Mew's perspective, originally Wolverine Logan, who was still talking, turned into a statue. Wolverine Logan continued to speak, his hands on the steering wheel and his head turned. He, the dilapidated classic car and the whole world were suspended. World permission access completed. Weekly identity acquisition completed. It seems as if columns of data information are presented like codes. The Almighty Eye slowly emerged in Chu Mew's mind. Even if you travel to the past time. But after the cooling off period of 7 days of silence, this God's pupil as still operating normally, and its time standard seems to be calculated with Chu-Mu as the center. I wonder if drawing a new identity in the past time and space will enjoy any rewards from a limited card pool. Chu-Mu has always had a big imagination. He had played a lot of fill money card drawing games before he traveled through time. Limited card pools were a money-stealing thing, and every time he cried when asking for his wallet. At the moment, Chu-Mu recalled the unbearable past, and couldn't help but wonder whether the almighty I also had a limited identity. Definitely. Brainholes are brainholes. In fact, Chu-Mu doesn't particularly want those fancy special identities. He would be satisfied if they could just give him a platinum or diamond status. The first few platinum level statuses have brought Chu-Mu a considerable improvement. The platinum level status of the necromancer has brought the power to conspire against death and play with decedent. And the realm of the dead, a pocket dimension equivalent to the land of Marvel's Deadman. It is even much higher level than the pocket dimensions possessed by Heavenly Father God. The reward of this identity is the Heart of Death. Even though it has not been obtained yet, the ability that can make Chu-Mu permanently immune to death is certainly not weak. That is a power method that will not be able to truly kill Chu-Mu even if the 5 gods of the universe die in person, but the cost will require Chu-Mu to kill an entire universe of people. So far, Chu-Mu has not yet found the opportunity to complete this task. The uniqueness of time brought to Chu-Mu by another platinum-level fool with a history also fundamentally eliminates the possibility of him being affected by others using the power of time. This is even a person at a certain extra-dimensional level. It is also the reason why Chu-Mu has stayed in the past and changed some things, but it will not affect his memory. Identity-specific mission. Successfully fooled history 3 times. Task reward. Power of Destiny. Power of Destiny. The tide hidden in history is just the pen and ink you use to write stories, and you will draw endless power from these stories. The exclusive mission of this identity is to play with history 3 times. It also has very unreasonable rewards and can draw strength from the stirred destiny. As for how much power can be gained after fooling history once, this can only be verified after Chu-Mu returns to the future. What he does in the past can be regarded as a fool of history. Anyway, the power feedback it brings will definitely not be less. It can be seen from the 2 platinum statuses obtained before that the platinum status is still of great help to Chu-Mu. At least give me a platinum shot. Light and darkness are constantly flowing. Chu-Mu's heart is full of expectations. He visualized the almighty I in his mind. Hold your breath a little. Gaze at the colorful and dazzling luster on the almighty I. Several times. Chu-Mu even saw the unknown red color. He knew that it must be an extremely high-level color, and he swallowed his saliva slightly nervously. How to say? As the color changes in almighty I, slow down. After a long time, the beating colors gradually freeze. Finally, a color bloomed that Chu-Mu had never seen before. Almighty I, as finally fixed on the shining bright silver. It was a kind of silver with a slightly brilliant color, and also had a very deep blue luster, just like the color that could be used to play B in a certain game before Chu-Mu traveled through time. How lucky. Chu-Mu's face was full of surprise. Bronze, silver, gold, platinum, 4 levels of status. Chu-Mu has drawn a lot of them, but this is the first time he has encountered the bright silver. Even if he doesn't check the condition of the almighty I, he can still know that this represents the diamond level color above the platinum level. That's right. Diamond status. I don't know if it was Chu-Mu's careful washing that brought him extraordinary luck. His character suddenly exploded and he was awarded diamond status. There is a high probability that there is no way to conduct precise verification of metaphysics. But, anyway, this time the identity extraction. It is indeed the first time that Chu-Mu has achieved diamond status. Ha 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 ha. Maybe traveling to the past is really blessed by the treasure of identity. It's rare for the almighty I to be so powerful. Wolverine Logan next to Chu-Mu had already fallen into a frozen state, so he didn't need to cover up and just laughed loudly in the dilapidated classic car. He was so happy when he drew the status. The last time was when he got the platinum status for the first time, and now the diamond status for the first time also made him ecstatic. Platinum level status has made Chu-Mu a strong man standing at the top. Whether it is the Fool of History, or the Lord of the Dead, he is a powerful and abandoned person. Now, diamond status, which is a level higher than platinum status, can definitely bring huge benefits to Chu-Mu that are even more powerful than platinum status. According to my previous inference, diamond level status points to multi-universe level qualifications. Do I really want to become a multi-universe level extraordinary existence before I am 100 years old? Chu Emu's mood at the moment also quite excited. He couldn't wait to check the identity drawn this time. How to say, you don't know if you don't see it. At first glance, this diamond level status drawn for the first time is a bit beyond Chu Emu's expectations, but if you think about it carefully, it is worthy of the diamond level status. Diamond level status, Dragon Monarch. Tip. Once the identity is valid, it will be valid forever. Tip. Platinum level and higher level identities may completely change the foundation of the world and have an irreversible impact on the entire world. Tip. Diamond level status may destroy the foundation of the world, please use it with caution. On the surface, you are a seemingly harmonious evil god. However, you have begun to play with and change the history of the world in the past timeline. The whole world is being influenced by your choices. Your character that is so addicted to hegemony comes from another layer of identity that you have hidden for a long time. The identity is presented in the same style as always. Almighty I is still very keen on discrediting Chu Mu. This time it was even worse. Chu Mu is depicted as a very evil god. All we can say is that Almighty I must be Chu Emu's little sunspot. Definitely, putting this aside, the new identity acquisition also brings some changes that were not seen before. First, platinum level and higher level identities may completely change the foundation of the world and have an irreversible impact on the entire world. There have been hints before. But now there is a new reminder, diamond level status may destroy the foundation of the world, please use it with caution. Regarding such a prompt, Chu Mu could probably guess what was going on. The higher the identity brought by Almighty I, the greater the impact it can have. It is actually quite normal to destroy the foundation of the world. The experience brought by using Almighty I for many years has made Chu Mu know that he does not need to worry too much about these prompts of Almighty I. He is a measured person. I will definitely not take the initiative to destroy the universe. The only thing I have to worry about is, what kind of things will this identity allow? From the urinary properties shown by the Almighty I, in the past, Chu Mu guessed that when he obtained this identity, what would happen in the universe? There may be some more variables. This is inevitable. As long as Chu Mu is still using the gold finger, Almighty I, the variables brought by Almighty I are inevitable. At worst, all the strange world things will pop up again. The DC universe and the Dark universe are all involved. It is not unacceptable to integrate universes from other worldviews, even the Ultraman universe. As long as there is no Cthulhu or Foundation, Chu Mu thinks the problem will not be big, it will just bring some uncertain variables to the world. To some extent, those variables also made Chu Mu feel novel. Even if there are variables, it may cause some crises. But compared with the benefits he gained, those crises were nothing to mention. Speaking of it, for this kind of situation where the whole world has to bear the consequences for my own selfish desires, I really feel like a kind of evil god. Chu Mu laughed at herself. Immediately, I just continued to look down. You have traveled outside the universe, and in the void outside the universe, you have obtained a strange giant egg that is about to hatch. The creature in the egg is a born god, with the potential to influence countless universes. As an evil god, you immediately imprinted your soul mark on the strange dome. You have become the master of the natural god in the strange dome, and its king. Although your methods are very despicable, it still uses them very well. You have been secretly hiding that strange giant egg in your pocket dimension all this time, and today it successfully hatched a young dragon with unlimited potential. You have become the Dragon King. Identity-specific mission, cultivate young dragons to adulthood. Task reward. Star casting avenue. All of a sudden, Chu Emu's expression became very exciting. It's not that the newly drawn identity is so weird, nor is it that the newly drawn identity is not worthy of the diamond level. When he saw the title, Dragon Lord, before, he actually guessed that his new identity might be related to raising some powerful dragon species. The Lord of Dragons. In layman's terms, it is the master of dragon creatures. In all the heavens and worlds, dragons are definitely extremely powerful creatures. The dragon species involved in the diamond level status will definitely not be ordinary dragon species. Chu Emu's mind quickly came up with the dragon species that were very famous before he traveled through time. For example, the Black King and White King in the dragon world, but the dragons in that world are probably only a little more powerful than some eye-dragons in the Western fantasy world. Not quite worthy of diamond status. Chu Mu also thought about the terrifying black dragon known as Deathwing in a game that had been discontinued before he traveled through time. It must be pretty cool to have such a big black dragon. Besides, for a big guy like Deathwing, his name goes well with his power attributes. Anyway, even Chu Mu had imagined many possibilities, even imagining that it might be a dragon species that she didn't understand, but she didn't expect that the one she drew was actually that kind of dragon. It can be said that this is absolutely it is the most powerful dragon type that Chu Mu feels is second only to the dragon in the myth of the Dragon Kingdom. The avenue of casting stars, although the identity introduction did not mention specific breed information. But Chu Mu from the reward description. Also, in the current alien world of my own, the little purple guy who appeared out of thin air under the influence of the Almighty Eye has the appearance of forbidden animal husbandry, and I can probably deduce that the pet I harvested this time is a what level of dragon species. Diamond level status is really awesome. Chu Mu couldn't help but let out a heartfelt sigh. In fact, it comes from the description of pet dragons as natural gods. It is not difficult to guess the level of the pet dragon. If Chu Mu remembers correctly, the young dragon he obtained now possesses the status of a creator god in another world. Yes, the person of the creator god. Chu Mu didn't know how to describe the identity of Dragon Lord. He could only shout, Almighty Eye, Niubi, diamond status as soft. Just use the serious god of creation as a pet. It has evolved into an alien world with a pocket dimension. Originally there was only the sun and moon in the sky. After a purple dragon that looked like a cute Q version appeared, stars filled the sky appeared under the influence of some unknown law. The bright starlight almost fills the entire sky, and there are cosmic nebulae flowing in the sky. Those shining stars combined with the majestic nebulae look extremely shocking. Today's alien world. It seems to be no different from a real universe. Among the countless pocket dimensions, it can probably be regarded as the kind of welcome world that is closest to the real universe. It is now even closer to the real universe than the Forbidden Kingdom of the Dead. This is due to the infinite potential of the alien world, as well as the divine body and origin nourishment of Ra, the supreme god of ancient Egypt. Now, the extraordinary divine dragon brought by the new identity has also brought great benefits to the alien world. The lawful influence of the birth of this little purple dragon has made up for many things that the alien world lacks, making the alien world the world also has a whole starry sky. True. The alien world is not yet comparable to the real universe, but there is no problem in saying that it has reached the prototype of a real universe. Except that no living things exist in it, at least billions or tens of billions of lives are supported in it every day. Just by being born, it can affect the changes in the dimensions of the entire universe. It really has endless potential. Chu Mu couldn't help but sigh sincerely as he observed the changes in the alien world. He stared at the young divine dragon that was roaming in the starry sky of another world, as if he was curious about everything. His eyes flashed constantly, it was unmistakable. Although the appearance looked a lot different, this divine dragon it's definitely the star-forging Dragon King in Runeterra. Yes. Cast Star Dragon King. O'Reilly and Thor. Although the Almighty Eye did not give specific information, Chu Mu still recognized the identity of the dragon that was born in the alien world. It was the one who was born in the background story of the hero Bayan. In Rune Land, where there are countless heroic characters, the most powerful being is also the creator of the entire universe, the Star Dragon King, who created the entire universe in the background story. Diamond status. Really powerful, he directly gave Chu Mu the creator god of the universe as a pet. In Chu Mu's mind, starting to recall memories of Runeterra, it was also a world full of extraordinary things. Chu Mu did not expect that the Almighty Eye would also be involved in the universe involved in the game. How to put it? Maybe if you think about it carefully, it won't feel strange. After all, even the universe like the Dark Universe, which has been cut in half, can be integrated into the Marvel Universe. The scope of the power of the Almighty Eye is obviously not as broad as usual. In a sense, Runeterra background also belongs to. After all, Riot Games, the developer of that game, has also made a lot of animated CGS over the years, so there is nothing wrong with saying that Runeterra is an American comic. The god of creation, star-casting Dragon King. This is the creator of the entire Rune universe. The Dragon King exists in the vast universe and was born from the breath of ether. Since it became conscious, it has created thousands of stars in the endless desolate void. The starry sky of the entire universe in the Rune Land are all created by it in the endless creation of time. This is like its mission, or more like its interest. The so-called natural gods in the background of Almighty Eye are obviously not ordinary divine beings, but similar to the Ancient One, responsible for the innate sanctity of the duty that created the world. It can also be said to be the creator god. The identity of the star-casting Dragon King and the creation god is absolutely genuine. The Dragon King often travels around the vast universe and witnesses the existence of every civilization. However, many lower creatures cannot arouse its interest, and countless worlds worship it. Perhaps the power level of Runeterra is not as good as that of the Marvel Universe, but the powerful existence there can also affect the entire universe. Chu Mu is very satisfied with this diamond level harvest, and he is also satisfied with his diamond level status. Have a clear understanding. True. The universe created by the star-casting Dragon King will most likely not be as powerful as the Marvel Universe, but the Rune Universe is definitely not a weak universe. The gods within. Not necessarily weaker than some of the gods in the Marvel Universe. And as the creator god. In terms of character, the star-casting Dragon King is at least equivalent to the OAA in the Marvel Universe. However, Chu Mu estimates that the star-casting Dragon King's strength should probably be at the level of the Multiverse Universe level. It may be more powerful than the 5 gods of the universe, but it is absolutely impossible to reach above the multi-universe. After all, he has analyzed the power brought by the diamond level status before. It is definitely not as good as OAA, and the gap is still several life levels. But, after all, he is also the creator god. Although this diamond level status did not directly improve Chu Mu's own strength, the Almighty Eye also gave Chu Mu a pet with unlimited potential. When he thought that the star-casting Dragon King could almost fill the size of a galaxy when it grew up, Chu Mu felt that it would be extremely cool to go out with such a pet. Not just handsome, and very good at fighting. The force is absolutely full and cannot be fuller. Not only that, if you complete identity-specific tasks, the rewards given by the Almighty Eye are also extremely attractive. Star Avenue. This is the foundation of star-casting Dragon King as the god of creation. It is also the creation law that created the entire universe. If he can obtain such power of law, Chu Mu will definitely be able to obtain extremely powerful power. Not sure, he can also feel like a creator god. I don't know how long the growth period of this kind of life will be. Chu Mu is looking forward to it, and he is also very interested in creating a universe. Before time travel, Chu Mu has played a game that can create life and even interfere with the evolution of organisms. It is very fun. Perhaps using the power of Star-Casting Avenue, he can create an extremely gorgeous world with his imagination just like in that game. The more I think about it, Chu Mu felt more and more excited. But he also knew very well that the time it would take to raise the star-casting Dragon King would definitely not be short. Platinum-level status tasks are already so difficult, so there is no reason why diamond-level status tasks should be less difficult. The legal rewards this time are much higher than those for platinum status. Whether it is the fate feedback brought by the Fool of History, or the Heart of Death, that will be rewarded by the status of Undead Lord. They are difficult to compare with the law of creation from a personal perspective. Anyway, what I don't lack most is time. Chu Mu looked at the Q version of the Dragon King in another world. He saw the Q version of the Dragon King walking through the stars and exploring a novel world for the first time. Probably sensing that Chu Mu's will had come to the alien world, the Q version of the Dragon King raised his head and gave a friendly cry to the eyes condensed by Chu Mu's will. As a life that has been branded in the description of Almighty Eye, this dragon is destined to be loyal to Chu Mu from the bottom of his heart from the moment he is born. Even though it looks like a Q version, the size it was born is definitely thousands of kilometers long. It's just that she looks relatively cute and cute. Having the strength of level single universe since birth. Is this a natural god with the authority to create the world? Chu Mu judged the life level of the star-casting Dragon King at the moment, and couldn't help but clicked his tongue. He knew that he might not be able to release this dragon easily on the Earth. Otherwise, the Earth cannot bear a lively and active level single universe life. Don't say anything else. Just look at the physique. If the star-casting Dragon King turns over on the Earth, it may cause large-scale natural disasters and earthquakes. Just when Chu Mu used his will to observe the star-casting Dragon King. And, after also interacting with the young dragon, as he accepted his new identity, the power of the Almighty Eye also faded. In reality, the time that had been frozen began to flow again. Logan, who was about to speak, also said the words that he had frozen for a long time. You simply know how to enjoy yourself better than those nobles. No girl in the wild cares about your neatness. Wolverine Logan had no idea that he had been frozen for a long time. After he spoke to Chu Mu with a puzzled look on his face, he stuck his head out of the window and took a few puffs of his cigar. For a rugged man like Wolverine Logan, hygiene is all that matters, as long as it is not dirty. The only advantage of being clean is that it can attract women. Grooming yourself neatly will improve your luck throughout the day, and it's not just about attracting sex. Chu Mu got a good identity and was in a good mood. Your luck will improve if you dress neatly. Is this some kind of custom in the Dragon Kingdom? Wolverine Logan nodded thoughtfully. He respected the seemingly unscientific customs of every place, and even regarded the customs of each place. He is quite interested in customs. Various customs of a place. They often have traces left by countless years in that place, which can have a very good assisting effect on the research and understanding of history. As a history teacher at Xavier's school, in order for students to really learn knowledge, Wolverine Logan still made a lot of changes in himself and learned a lot of knowledge that he didn't care about when he was a wanderer before. Definitely. Why is there a custom that tidying up will bring good luck? He was also unable to speculate. This custom is a bit too strange. Custom. Chu Mu thought for a moment. For those who play card games. Perhaps this kind of operation to wash away bad luck can also be regarded as a custom of special groups in the new era? Zahn will not change his wrongs, and his will not change his fate. I just mean whatever I want. The European Emperor is born. Obviously, I am an European Emperor today. Chu Mu even wanted to hum a song happily. Every word of his words was enunciated clearly, but the ordinary words connected together left Wolverine Logan a little confused. What the hell? What is Owang? There is also a large paragraph before. I can't understand it. Wolverine Logan tried hard to recall for a while. When she went to the Dragon Kingdom, she didn't seem to have heard of strange customs like this. Could it be some canon followed by the mutants of the Dragon Kingdom, or other special groups? Wolverine Logan sighed in his heart that the world is so big and full of wonders. I don't know. What Chu Mu said. In fact, it does not exist in this world at all. Okay, there is a river ahead. Do you want to take a bath? Wolverine Logan could only use the only words she could understand to communicate with Chu Mu. He remembered that Chu Mu had said before that if possible, he would like to take a shower and change clothes. That's not necessary. Chu Mu blinked. Anyway, the new identity has been drawn. Luck explosive. There is absolutely no need to believe in any metaphysics. Next time, wait until the 7-day cooling-off period is up. Well, Chu Mu's thoughts are very Longguo people. Whether it is praying or worshipping God, you will do it only when necessary. Definitely, Chu Mu would never do anything like praying or worshipping gods. After all, Chu Mu is a god in her own right. Still a god king. In fact, bathing and washing hands have no real effect on him. Neither hand washing nor bathing can actually clean him. Chu Mu's life level would not allow him to produce any dirt. To some extent. No matter how many years it takes, his body will be cleaner than that of a person who just took a shower. Not only will there be no dirt, but no bacteria or viruses will adhere to it. Okay, as long as you're happy. Wolverine Logan shrugged and drove the classic car seriously. You seem a little confused. Chu Mu looked at Wolverine Logan with a suppressed smile. He definitely knew how Wolverine Logan was feeling at the moment. It was quite interesting to joke with the future old wolf along the way. No, I can understand. It's like a church. Kind of baptism ceremony? Anyway, it's good to be able to put yourself in a good mood throughout the day. Wolverine Logan strives to show her rare emotional intelligence. He stuck his head out of the window and held a cigar in his mouth again. This was something he found out from the old car. Future time and space. It's not easy to get this retro flavor. Pure tobacco smell. Wolverine Logan's expression is full of emotion. He will not quit smoking in the future. However, tobacco in the future will have more and more technology and ruthless work. It's obvious that you have no faith. Chu Mu could tell that Wolverine Logan was a believer without even prying into Wolverine Logan's mind. From what this old wolf just said, it is not difficult to analyze that in Wolverine Logan's heart, all the prayers and rituals of believers of various sects are actually self-comfort. Wolverine Logan believes from the bottom of her heart that the only benefit these operations bring to humans is that they can put themselves in a good mood. It can give human beings a positive attitude to face life. I am an atheist. I have never believed that there is any selfless God in this world who will help mankind day after day. You know, even the nanny you pay for can be there. When you are impatient, Wolverine Logan makes no secret of her psychology. You know, I've met a lot of guys who call themselves gods. Without exception, they are just people no different from us. Words by Wolverine Logan. It struck some chords with Chu Mu. The apocalypse he met not long ago was the kind of person Wolverine Logan said. You see quite clearly, Chu Mu chuckled. Ha ha ha. I just understand that even if there is a real God, he will not help mankind. There are many God believers who have been persecuted in history. Wolverine Logan spit out the cigarette butt in his mouth. There was emotion in his tone. You're right. Chu Mu stuck out his head and looked at the sky. When he mentioned God, he was also a little curious. In this world that integrates many things in the DC universe, who has such a status in the DC universe? Does the same God from OAA also appear in the Marvel universe? If it does appear, will there be a fight with OAA again? Tisk tisk. I have quite a lot to think about. Chu Mu felt funny at her own whim. He is now just a life in the level single universe. But he is not qualified to care about the creation level conflict. Instead of thinking about who is stronger and who is weaker between the God of the DC universe and the OAA of the Marvel universe, he might as well be curious about casting star. Can a stable supply and demand relationship be formed between the Dragon King and the Planet Devourer? A planet made at random. The other one isn't comfortable without eating the planet. It actually fits quite well, definitely. It may not be realistic to abduct Galactus as a thug by relying on the temptation of food. But Chu Mu remembers that Galactus has a daughter. She is also a glutton. As the daughter of Galactus, she definitely needs to devour the planet. I don't know where the daughter of Galactus is in the universe now. Young and innocent girls are the easiest to be kidnapped with delicious food. Sometimes, luck is really a mysterious thing. Just like Chu Mu was lucky enough to get a diamond level status like Dragon Lord. But the dilapidated old car he was riding in suddenly broke down. Definitely. Wolverine Logan's car has gone through countless owners, and breaking down is not a small probability event. Fortunately, you just proposed to go into the city for a night of repairs. Otherwise, we would definitely have to sleep on the road tonight. Wolverine Logan has been tinkering with his classic cars for a long time. However, his excellent repair skills cannot repair a car with damaged parts. After several days of driving, you are the only one who would sleep on the street. Chu Mu corrected Wolverine Logan's wrong statement. He could enter the alien world to repair at any time. In that world, he can not only sleep on a big bed, but also have a little dragon that is softer than a cat. Ah. Wolverine Logan didn't know much about Chu Mu's ability, so he didn't understand what Chu Mu's words meant at all. He was about to say something. However, as the dilapidated classic car made a sudden noise, and black smoke emitted from the engine in front, his attention was drawn back to his car. It's completely hopeless now. Wolverine Logan finally gave up on using his own skills to repair the car. His face was badly burned by the black smoke that suddenly appeared. It seems I have to find a repair shop to fix it before we can continue on the road. Wolverine Logan sighed unwillingly. He was someone who had repaired a tank with his bare hands on the battlefield, but he didn't expect to be able to repair an ordinary car. This kind of old antique is so delicate. Wolverine Logan couldn't help but complain. He also knew how poor he was at this time. Is there a possibility that your skills are rusty? Chu Mu's words meant something, but Wolverine Logan could not understand them. How is that possible? I'm a professional. Wolverine Logan's tone was quite strong at first, but in the end she gradually showed some guilt. What he now possesses is a soul from the future. For him, the cars from the Civil War era are indeed antiques that have been extinct for many years. The craft of repairing cars. It is definitely impossible to compare with himself at this period. Hearing Chu Mu's words, he couldn't help but start muttering in his heart. Could it be that I'm used to driving cars from the future, so I've almost forgotten how to repair antique cars? The possibility of this situation is very high. However, Wolverine Logan didn't want to admit it. He didn't notice from the beginning to the end that Chu Mu's words had some meaning to his identity. In Wolverine Logan's opinion, Chu Mu, a person from the past era, is mysterious, but after all, he is a being from the past. How can it be possible to see through that he is a soul from the future? How to say? The main reason is that Wolverine Logan doesn't know that Chu Mu is also a person from the future who does not belong to this era. Naturally, he will not think too much in a complicated direction. Really? I don't believe it. Chu Mu blinked. His words made Wolverine Logan feel guilty again for no reason. Anyway, we have to repair it before we can hit the road. I'm going to find out if there's a repair shop nearby. Would you like to find a hotel to stay in first or something? Wolverine Logan touched his nose and began to change the subject clumsily. I'm going to take a look around the city. Just come to that hotel to meet me in the evening. Chu Mu casually pointed to the tallest high-end hotel in the city. Okay. Wolverine Logan nodded. he these days. I also know that Chu Mu is a rich man who is not short of money. Also, people who live in the wild with such a sense of ritual are definitely not poor people. Watching Chu Mu, who seemed to be very curious about this city, slowly blending into the crowd, a trace of doubt flashed in Wolverine Logan's eyes. Such a character. Not just powerful, and looking at the level of consumption these days, the financial resources are definitely not that bad. Why haven't I heard anything about this person in the future? This problem. Wolverine Logan from the future has been troubled more than once. It had been several days since he had been on a road trip with Chu Mu. The two were now about to leave the border of Sulian. He had been guessing Chu Mu's identity these days. Why haven't I heard about the legend of forbidden grazing in the future? Logically speaking, even if he is a relatively strong Buddhist man, his reputation may not be as great as that of Magneto and Professor. Did he die because of some accident without leaving any stories? Wolverine Logan couldn't help but think so. Put yourself in his shoes. This is probably the reason that can explain the lack of traces of Chu Mu in history. Definitely, it's also possible that Mu is a very low-key strong man who has been hiding his whole life. However, from what Wolverine Logan has learned about Chu Mu these days, he feels that people who can easily use gold bars to buy wine will probably not keep a low profile for the rest of their lives. Don't think too much, and I won't stay in this era for too long. I must study this period carefully after I go back. Wolverine Logan sighed in his heart, then turned around and put out the black smoke in the hood, and then locked his classic car seriously. He didn't know how long he could stay in this era. Before traveling through time, the noisy experts at Xavier's school didn't reveal to him the duration of time travel at all. He was just thinking that he wouldn't be allowed to live to that time in the future. Duan is right. Although I liked this era very much, but some memories of the future period flashed through Wolverine Logan's mind. He knows that he still has unfinished things that he can't let go of in the future. Even though today's period is much more comfortable than the future, he still doesn't want to stay in this era and linger. He just wants to have a good rest after completing his responsibilities. Smoking a cigar on the spot, Wolverine Logan asked about the auto repair shop. At the same time, Chu Mu also had a good appreciation of the scenery of a big city during World War E, and he enjoyed a delicious lunch with Soviet characteristics. The snowy scenery outside the restaurant looks very beautiful. Very peaceful. Today's war has not caused heavy losses to the Soviet Union. At least the big cities are still prosperous on the surface, and occasionally some flower-selling girls walk through the streets. Do you want to eat this? Chu Mu is trying to feed the casting star Dragon King. No surprises. Once again he failed. The diet for the young body of the casting star Dragon King obviously does not include these exquisite low-efficiency foods on Earth. The casting star Dragon King is not interested in a piece of steak. This is already the 30th time Chu Mu has tried to feed the star-casting Dragon King. He definitely knows that with a life like the star-casting Dragon King, he doesn't have to worry about him starving to death. Just like a person who has a cat will enjoy the process of feeding the cat very much, Chu Mu also wants to experience the joy of feeding a pet. It can only be said that the casting star Dragon King does not understand Chu Mu's psychology at all. Facing Chu Mu's feeding, it would only show a confused and cute expression on its face. That's understandable. It is not incomprehensible that a newborn dragon does not understand affection and cannot act as an obedient pet well. Today's star-casting Dragon King is like a blank piece of paper, similar to a newborn human baby. The only thing he likes to do is to follow his instinct and travel through the stars. It was not that Chu Mu had never thought about releasing the star-casting Dragon King to Mast Arbite, but after much thought, he still did not do so out of consideration for the safety of the Earth. Even going to outer space is actually not very safe. To a certain extent, a born god like the young dragon without enough thinking is actually much scarier than those gods with reason. At least gods with reason can reason. But a new god like the star-casting Dragon King doesn't even have the most basic concepts yet. A child holding a nuclear bomb controller may press the switch at will just for fun, which is probably similar to the situation with the star-casting Dragon King. Even in its infancy, the star-casting Dragon King possesses the strength of level single universe. If it is allowed to play around, it can easily cause huge amounts of disaster. Level single universe. Chu Mu is very aware of the damage this level can cause. God destroys a civilization. Maybe God just sneezed. It's so exaggerated. Even though the Star Dragon King is just born, its strength is undoubtedly comparable to Thor in the state of Rune King. Don't underestimate Thor. Especially Thor in his Rune King state. Anyone who is familiar with the specific situation of Marvel knows that the early standard for measuring combat effectiveness was Captain America, and in the later stages of Marvel, the new standard for measuring power was Thor. In Rune King Thor, it is one of Thor's most powerful forms, whether it is a superhero in Marvel or a supervillain in Marvel, under the world form of Marvel multi-universe, their strength is not static. In different stages, different events, and different parallel universes, the combat effectiveness of Marvel heroes will undergo earth-shaking changes. Most Marvel heroes have their own highlight moments. Just like Green Shang-Hulk, that was Hulk's highlight moment. And the Rune King. Naturally, it's Thor's highlight. Rune King Thor. The strength of level single universe. The absolute strongest in the universe. A level better than Odin. The aftermath of his power can easily destroy a fixed star. The star-casting Dragon King has the same level of strength. If you were excited twice, there will probably be a big turmoil in the solar system. It plays best in the alien world. Even if it destroys the alien world into a mess, Chu Mu has high authority in the alien world and wants to repair the entire world. Easy. Speaking of the Rune King Thor, I never thought that Thor could be so ruthless. While drinking tea, Chu Mu used his will to cultivate a relationship with the star-forging Dragon King in a different world. At the same time, he could also do 3 things at once. Go express your feelings for Thor. Rune King Thor is indeed ruthless. In the history Chu Mu understands. In order to directly end a disaster plaguing Asgard, Thor directly chose to learn from his father's practice and hang himself on the world tree for 9 days and 9 nights, in order to obtain the rune magic of the runes and realize the power that can prevent the disaster. Strength. Thor succeeded. He ultimately integrated the power of Odin with rune magic. He created his own reputation as the Rune King. He is more powerful than Odin. The reason. Even Odin just dug out one of his own eyes for power, but at least this god king who likes to harm himself still kept it for himself. One eye. However, on the other hand, Thor, the Rune King. People directly exchange their eyes for strength. Twice as cruel as Odin. It's only natural that he becomes stronger than Odin. Asgard's ability to self-mutilate is stronger than anyone else's. Maybe it's a signature. The blind monk of the land can build a good resonance with the Rune King Thor. All are blind. Chu Mu's life was very comfortable. Drinking tea. Waiting for Wolverine Logan to fix the car. After the Almighty Eye revealed his identity, Chu Mu had actually been prepared for the world to be changed. But these days, when he had nothing to do, he looked around at other places on the earth, but he didn't find anything weird, but he didn't feel that the Almighty Eye had discovered his conscience because of this. At once. Like many times before, some changes always happened when he wasn't paying attention. Chu Mu has already been tricked by the Almighty Eye. How can I put it? His summary of the Almighty Eye's urinary properties is indeed correct. No, while Chu Mu was enjoying afternoon tea, he was just admiring the scenery of the old streets. In a remote country many kilometers away, he attracted the Almighty Eye. The variables brought about are that it is a remote country isolated from the world. Meteorite. It's a meteorite. Dark all over. Holding a technological spear. A group of guards dressed like primitive people looked solemnly at the sky, where a huge amount of meteorite was falling from the sky. This is Wakanda, located in Eastern Africa. For centuries, it has always been isolated from the rest of the world. On the surface, Wakanda is a poor and backward agricultural country, but in fact it is the most technologically advanced country on Earth. They possess the unique and rare resource vibranium. In order to protect this resource, they secluded themselves in isolation. Since many times, the people of Wakanda live a peaceful life. But just today, the peace of Wakanda was broken by a meteorite falling from the sky. With the help of high-tech telescopes, many people saw the huge amounts of meteorite. As well as, before the meteorite fell out, a cracked space. What's going on? It didn't fall in from the universe. The current king of Wakanda immediately ordered his men to search for it. Is this another vibranium fall? As a king, the current Black Panther has very deep eyes. He knows more secrets than the people and understands why Wakanda is the only one who has the resources of vibranium. Is it an opportunity or a danger? King Black Panther frowned, feeling a little uneasy. He was used to living a peaceful life, and he didn't like unknown things breaking the peace. I waited anxiously for a long time. He finally received the situation reported by the guards. Oh my god. It's an egg. A very, very big egg. The guards' reports made King Black Panther feel confused and unbelievable. He went to check it out for himself. Immediately. Huge amounts of deep pits. A giant egg that looked like a huge object came into his eyes. It was really a giant egg. The Black Panther King's originally dignified face showed a look of horror. Who has ever seen huge amounts of eggs bigger than an aircraft carrier? This egg falls. It's rare that it didn't smash through the entire Wakanda. Not only that, everyone present, whether they were guards or kings, could not imagine what kind of creature could give birth to an egg with such appalling specifications. Are there such creatures on Earth? This is probably not going to be a good thing for us. King Black Panther stares at the dome, a look of worry. The red lines on the dome flicker like breathing. It gave him an extremely ominous feeling of death. The entire land of Wakanda is covered by their technology. Therefore, naturally, no country can detect what happens on the land of Wakanda, and it is impossible for Chu Mu to observe every inch of the earth at any time and at any time. It can only be said that the changes caused by the Almighty Eye are as difficult to detect as ever. A giant egg with mysterious origins. No one knows what changes it will bring to Wakanda and the Marvel Universe in this era. It is even more impossible for anyone to know what kind of life is nurtured in it. The anomaly caused by the diamond level status is obviously not a simple situation. The historical trend of the entire world has once again undergone unpredictable changes. In fact, it's not just the changes brought about by the new identity. The anomalies caused by some of Chu Mu's previous identities span time, and at the moment are also developing quietly on Marvel Earth in this era. Southeastern Norway. A remote town called Tonsberg not long ago welcomed a group of uninvited guests, the mustachioed army that is now stirring up trouble on the world's battlefields. For the residents of the small town, this is a fate they have always feared but had long expected. Everyone knows that this day will eventually come. After all, Germany's invasion of Norway was no longer a matter of 1 or 2 days. Although Norway played the role of a neutral country in the chaos of World War I, today Norway is constantly being captured by the German army. Many Norwegians don't understand why their country has always been neutral, but in the end it provoked the invasion and bloodbath of the German army. Only those who know a little military knowledge understand that it is entirely because of Norway's geographical location and the wealth contained in Norwegian land. Norway is located in the western part of Scandinavia, bordering Ruidian to the east and Finland and Sulian to the northeast. It has a coastline of 21,000 kilometers, many islands within the territory, and many natural harbors. Its strategic position is very important. And there are many minerals on this land, all of which can support the consumption of war. The German army that seeks to dominate the world will never let Norway go. As the saying goes, it is a crime to have a jade. A mere small country. How to withstand the terrifying army of the world overlord? Norwegian cities are falling one after another, but few small towns can attract a large number of troops. Facing the large number of Nazi troops stationed near the town, the residents of the town were not only frightened but also very confused about the presence of these troops. Could it be that there are some precious minerals near our town? It's no wonder that the residents of the town think so. Tonsberg is a backward and remote place. The combined wealth of the people in the town is not enough to consume an army of thousands of people in a day. They can't think of anything. The reason for the military presence in their town. Just when the residents of the town were extremely puzzled, the trucks drove in, which made them see a little fear on the faces of the Nazi soldiers. Were Nazi soldiers afraid of their own people? Many were taken prisoner. They couldn't help but look at those huge and solemn trucks. They were attracted by flags flying on large trucks. That's not the Nazi setup. Rather, Hydra, flag of Nazi Hydra. Young people who have gone out to see the market quickly recognize the Hydra flag. The Hydra that is active today is not an organization that will hide its head and tail in the future. In fact, as the Nazi army became invincible on the battlefield, Hydra, which made extraordinary contributions to the German Empire, has become famous in today's world. It is a terrifying organization that can make many national forces change their colors after hearing about it. They are more cold-blooded Nazis, it is said. Many inhuman and horrific experiments are still being done. Many people have heard that Hydra likes to use soldiers to conduct experiments, so it is no wonder that the Nazis' own soldiers also feared this organization. After all, no one wants to be used as a test subject. Hydra is so famous that even the Nazi soldiers are afraid of being selected by Hydra to undergo horrific transformations. What are they here for? Is there anything special about our town? Could it be that they plan to use our place as an experimental base? Oh my God. I don't want to die, and I don't want to be a guinea pig. A group of captured town residents cried for their fathers and mothers. However, there were no Nazi soldiers to pay attention to them at all. As for the purpose of Hydra appearing here, it was naturally not for this group of people. It can only be said that the residents of the small town are frightened. No one has the ability to analyze at all. They don't even think about how many people there are in a small town. Really start doing human experiments, it won't take more than a few days. The entire town's population will be depleted. Moreover, human body laboratory. It is impossible for highly confidential research to be established on the land of other countries. No one can tell when these lands will be abandoned or fought back. Norway is not strong enough, but there are countries that do not want Norway to be occupied. How's it going? Trucks parked in front of buildings not far outside the town. A cold middle-aged man wearing a Nazi army coat, with a pitted face and only one eye walked slowly out of the front truck. Judging from the attitude of a group of Nazi soldiers and other Hydra members towards him, it is not difficult to see that this cold middle-aged man is definitely a senior leader of Hydra. Several scholars have already gone in. We dug up the land under the bell tower, and there is indeed an incredible palace inside. A soldier reported to the cold middle-aged man with a respectful expression. They are not far away. In a bell tower made of neatly stacked stones, from time to time there would be strong soldiers transporting dirt and gravel from inside with wheelbarrows. The soil and gravel that were transported piled up together, almost forming a small hill in the open space next to it. Obviously, the excavation depth below the bell tower must be quite deep. Using modern machines, they have been excavating under the bell tower for quite some time. Just dig it out. I hope the contents will not disappoint us, our leader of Hydra. The cold middle-aged man looked at the soldier and whispered with an indifferent expression, Hydra has a very high status among the Nazis. He didn't want the trip to be in vain. It was precisely because he dug up what Hydra was looking for that he came here. Many people within the Nazi group knew that Hydra was pursuing supernatural things. In the records of some ancient books, there are magical things in the land of Tonsberg, but because there is not enough information, they just let the Nazi army look for it. Never thought about it. They really found the supernatural relics they were after. I think it's definitely not simple inside. General, you should go and see for yourself. It's not just the palace, there's a big scary guy inside the palace. The voice of the soldier in charge of the report was full of incredible exclamation. His attitude aroused considerable interest in the cold middle-aged man. Big guy? The cold middle-aged man's eyes flickered slightly. It's definitely not something that ancient people could come up with. The soldier responsible for the report was sworn to it. He was also very smart and immediately led the cold middle-aged man towards the door of the bell tower. He felt that the general would be shocked when he saw the situation inside. In the bell tower, there is a deep pit that has been dug. About 10 meters deep. Inside the pit, unexpectedly, I discovered a long existing staircase that extended all the way down to the very deep underground, which seemed to be bottomless. The cold middle-aged man stayed outside the pit. He began to put on a special gas mask, and the soldiers next to him also put on gas masks. Just as they were making preparations to go underground. Bottom of the ladder. In an oval palace with countless exquisite carvings and murals, the first group of people to enter the underground palace were shouting excitedly. It really does. It really does. I didn't expect that the place recorded in that book actually exists. Oh my God. This is a wonder of the world. Several people were stroking the walls in the palace obsessively. Although they could not understand them at all, the exquisiteness of the murals left them stunned. These people are all experts in studying ancient history, myths and legends, and lost civilizations. They have been obsessed with various myths and legends since they were young. Even in today's war-torn era, they still have not given up their search for super-ancient civilization. Due to war, it has become very dangerous to explore anywhere. So this group of experts and scholars joined the Nazi army. Strictly speaking, they joined the supernatural department established by Hydra. In search of the supernatural, Hydra is looking for talents all over the world. The few people currently observing this underground palace are experts and scholars recruited by Hydra, and they come from several different countries in the world. They have no psychological pressure to serve the evil Nazis. Whether the Nazis are evil or not has nothing to do with experts and scholars like them. Whether the Nazis would use their discoveries to bring terrible disasters to the world is not something that this group of scholars who only want to pursue their dream consider. A scholar. The more books you read, it is also easier to breed unkindness and antisocial personality. Now that a super ancient ruins have been discovered, several scholars are thinking about their own fame and fortune. This discovery will definitely shock the world. The tone of one of the scholars was extremely exciting, and his voice was full of decisiveness. His words resonated with other scholars around him. These exquisitely carved murals were secondary. The most important discovery was the bronze gate on one of the walls, which seemed to be more than 10 meters high. When entering the palace before, almost everyone was shocked by the bronze door. It's hard to imagine how ancient people could build such huge amounts of bronze doors. This is an incredible miracle, even more than the pyramids. An elderly scholar with a gray beard and thick black-rimmed glasses walked tremblingly in front of the huge bronze door. There are also exquisite carvings on this huge bronze door. The patterns and patterns carved on it are also things that even many scholars cannot distinguish. But, despite this, everyone present was still convinced that even with today's technology and craftsmanship, this exquisite bronze creation is absolutely breathtaking. How could ancient humans have such abilities? This gate has existed for at least tens of thousands of years, but the reliefs on it are still lifelike. Several young scholars walked up to the bronze gate. They couldn't help but sigh, and they couldn't understand the state of the bronze gate. Oxidation reaction. What should we do? Even if it is buried, there should be an oxidation reaction. The face of an expert who is proficient in chemistry is full of confusion and confusion. It's so new, as if it was just made. Hasn't time ever flowed on it? The scholar who was proficient in chemistry touched the bronze door. He felt a warmth on the bronze door, which actually made his mood gradually calm down. Incredible. It's amazing. Bronze door effect. It was also discovered by other scholars who touched the bronze door. What do these patterns represent? A relatively handsome scholar with blonde hair is an ancient linguist. He is pondering the meaning of the patterns on the bronze door. Generally speaking, ancient drawing. It should be telling some story and telling some history. However, on this bronze gate, there are only countless small snakes snaking on the relief of the gate. Thousands of little snakes gather and intertwine, linking together to form an extremely weird picture scroll, and it is impossible to tell what kind of meaning it contains. I can't wait to open it and see the secrets that have been hidden for tens of thousands of years. A somewhat stooped old man slowly walked to the door. His whisper. Other scholars couldn't help but look forward to it. The things inside may subvert the entire world's cognition, the white-bearded scholar said in a trembling tone, as if he saw himself gaining a world-renowned reputation. Key. This door needs a key. We cannot destroy it violently. It should be a treasure that belongs to the entire human civilization. The rickety old scholar groped on the door. For a moment, the voice was filled with an unmistakable feeling. And at this time, it's really a breathtaking big guy. The Hydra officer, who had taken protective measures, also entered the hall under the leadership of the soldiers. He immediately saw the bronze door standing in the middle of the hall. Although he was well informed, he still felt sincerely. Intuition told the officer. This discovery may be an unprecedented discovery. None of the ruins discovered in previous departments looked as shocking as this one. I brought the key. What you have to do is to open this key that contains ancient secrets for me and for the great Hydra. The cold officer was wearing a coat. He walked up to the scholars with a box in his hand. After entering the password, he opened the extremely sturdy box. The next second, some dazzling blue light bloomed from the safe, and a group of scholars subconsciously raised their hands to block their uncomfortable eyes. After a while, only then did they squint and look at the thing in the box. It was a square emitting blue light. There seemed to be something flowing in the square appearance, and it looked mysterious. It seems to be able to absorb people's hearts and minds. Is this the key? The old scholar asked blankly. If the key is guaranteed to be replaced, don't tell me that you can't figure out how to use it. We hired you just to do this kind of thing. The cold officer squinted his eyes slightly, and his snake-like eyes made the scholars present couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. They had no doubts. If it is a person, it has no effect. Will the officers in front of them do anything bad to them? The Nazis are a group of guys who really kill without blinking an eye. It will take some time, but we will be able to study it soon. The former Japanese scholar made a guarantee immediately after he came back to his senses. Other scholars also quickly agreed. It better be so. The cold officer nodded with satisfaction. He gestured to the soldier next to him, and the soldier immediately brought him stools and chairs. Don't break this key. The cold officer warned him, and he sat on the stool and started eating, his eyes always on the blue object in the safe. For Hydra, their knowledge of the blue object was limited. But something that contains powerful energy. Naturally, it cannot be lost or damaged easily. Hydra's emphasis on it is indeed correct. If you catch your eye here, you will definitely be able to recognize the identity of the blue object. Cosmic magic. That is the space gem, one of the infinite gems. As everyone knows, although infinite gems are the top divine objects in the Marvel Universe, they are not unique. That is to say, the same infinite gems will exist in different parallel universes, and the time these infinite gems exist on the timeline is also the same. Can be traced. Now is the era of World War E. The Tesseract, which contains the power of the space gem, is in the hands of the Nazi Hydra organization. It is an unexpected gain in their pursuit of extraordinary power. The energy contained in Tesseract seems to be endless, surpassing scientific cognition, and it also makes many scientists within Hydra believe that Tesseract is the ultimate energy source. They regard Tesseract as the basis that can help Hydra dominate the world. That's right. It's Hydra that dominates the world, instead of the Nazis dominating the world. Although Hydra is an organization within the Nazis, the loyalty of the people in this organization to the Führer is not as high as they show. The most loyal objects of all Hydra members are still them. Leader Red Skull. Hydra inhabited the Nazis and nourished their cancer with the blood of the Nazis. The loyalty shown by Red Skull in front of the mustached head of state was all acting. It is true that the skeleton was in awe of the failed art student. But Red Skull's character also determines that he is a character who is unwilling to be inferior to others. If given the opportunity, he will definitely want to seize the possibility of establishing his own business. Tesseract. Red Skull sees it as an opportunity to start his own business. He and his trusted subordinates and scientists have been developing the Tesseract, and they have indeed obtained powerful energy from the Tesseract. They have to. There are indeed many black technological means in the Marvel Universe. Otherwise, the Earth is the center of the Marvel Universe and the most special planet. A group of humans who cannot even enter the universe can use the most powerful artifact in the universe. Even if it is only used to a small extent, this is something that is almost impossible for other civilizations in the universe. Infinite gems have fallen into the hands of many civilizations, and without exception, those civilizations only obtained disasters caused by infinite gems. Only Earthlings. Even if they haven't learned the technology of using nuclear energy to boil water, they are still more powerful than those races that have already established interstellar civilizations in the universe. Using the Tesseract, Red Skull and his men have developed supergun technology, waiting to be mass-produced to help him dominate the world. Because of this, the importance of Tesseract to Hydra and Red Skull does not need to be elaborated too much. The cold officer sitting in the hall did not dare to let it out of his sight. If it weren't for the discovery of the ruins here in Tensbell and some ancient books, the power of the Tesseract is needed to open it. Red Skull, who is eager to obtain powerful extraordinary power. No one would come here with the Tesseract. It can be seen that I am Lord Red Skull's most trusted subordinate. The cold officer was happy that Red Skull could entrust this kind of task to him. Definitely. He also knew that the heavily armed soldiers with cutting-edge technology firearms in the several large trucks that came with him were not only the guards sent by Red Skull to protect him in the Tesseract, they were also the guarantee to prevent him from running away with the Tesseract. But even if he knew this, he would not be able to shake his loyalty to Red Skull at all. Those who can be regarded as confidants by Red Skull are guys who have been completely brainwashed by Red Skull. Perhaps when it comes to brainwashing methods, Red Skull is even better than the Führer. It is true that a person is better than an expert. You'd better open this door quickly, my patience is not good enough. The cold officer couldn't wait to receive Red Skull's commendation. He felt that it would be the greatest honor in his life. With the expectation and desire in his heart, he couldn't help but sternly urge the scholar team. We understand. We also want to quickly see the dusty history behind the gate. As the most authoritative person in the scholar team, the white-bearded scholar carefully picked up the Tesseract and walked to the bronze gate with excitement and expectation on his face. It's not difficult. You see, there is a recessed position here, the white-bearded scholar said as he put the Tesseract into the bronze door. The very conspicuous recessed position is also the entire bronze door. The gate is the center where countless small snake reliefs gather. Since the recessed position is in the middle of the bronze door, the white-bearded scholar also used the ladder that was brought in when inlaying the Tesseract. Kakaka. When the Tesseract was embedded in the recessed position of the bronze door, a subtle crisp sound that everyone could clearly hear suddenly appeared. I saw. The recessed position that is just right for the Tesseract file size is a tight adsorbent for the Tesseract put in by the white-bearded scholar. As if some kind of device was activated, the dark blue energy of silence in the Tesseract was released, and streams of bright blue light began to flow out of the Tesseract. Almost in the blink of an eye, it spread all over the entire bronze door, the area that reflects the relief. The blue radiance made the exquisite reliefs come to life, emitting a dazzling luster that instantly made everyone in the hall unable to open their eyes. Because the light was too bright, all the scholars and cold officers involuntarily raised their hands to block their eyes. Others are fine. At most, it just hurts my eyes. The white-bearded scholar who was closest to the bronze gate and still climbed on the ladder but could not fully climb down was definitely the unluckiest one. He also subconsciously raised his hand to cover his eyes, but he forgot his situation due to the sudden change. Therefore, Podgy, no surprises, in the case of being a little shocked by sudden changes. The strength of one hand in the elderly. It was impossible to keep the white-bearded scholar's body stable on the ladder. He fell directly from the ladder to the ground of the hall. Solid movement. There was also the scream from the white-bearded scholar the next moment. All of them showed that he was thrown badly. How should I put it? In fact, he was lucky. If he had not climbed down to a certain height just now, even a strong man would have been able to come down from the height in the middle of the bronze gate. Had to break a few ribs. Compare. He just fell down and lost a few of his few remaining front teeth. For the white-bearded scholar, it might be regarded as picking up a name. Definitely. The white-bearded scholar himself does not think so. Curse. This gate. There is definitely a mysterious curse, he shouted, actually attributing his experience to the curse of the hall. Indeed, in a world with extraordinary power, some ruins do have similar curses. Only, is the white-bearded scholar affected by the curse? But no one knows. Shut up. The cold officer looked at the bronze door excitedly. He disliked the white-bearded scholar for being too noisy, and glared at the white-bearded scholar fiercely. The person who could become Red Skull's right-hand man must be a butcher who was killed from the sea of blood from the corpse mountain. The cold officer's eyes immediately frightened the white-bearded scholar. Even though his mouth was still bleeding, he quickly covered his mouth. No one knows how cruel the Hydra people are better than the recruited scholars, and they have no chance of leaving after entering the den of thieves. It's not that no one chose to leave, but almost all of those who left died tragically at home. Everyone knows what that is all about. Kakaka. As the faint blue light spread throughout the door that had been silent for countless years began to move. The winding reliefs on it shone with the luster of tesseract. At the same time, the small snakes carved on it began to twist. Changed location. It was like a sophisticated mechanism was being activated, and the constant sound was dull and loud, echoing continuously throughout the underground palace. The one after another movements, coupled with the shocking changes in the bronze door, made the scholars and the well-informed cold officers unable to help but become a little nervous. A miracle. It's just a miracle. Oh my God. Such a method. The super-ancient civilization may have more advanced technology than us. The scholar wearing gold-rimmed spectacles looked enthusiastic and full of incredible wonder. He could not imagine how such a sophisticated creation and the key to open the door were made by ancient people. Could it be that aliens really came? Over the Earth? How could the people on Earth who lived at least tens of thousands of years ago create such a creature? This simply made him feel like an unreal dream. The scholar wearing gold-rimmed spectacles knows that Hydra is pursuing ultra-ancient civilizations, and also knows that these ultra-ancient civilizations contain something extremely special. But, in the eyes of scholars wearing gold-rimmed glasses, everything special can be explained by science, but today's science has not yet reached a similar height. For example, the bronze door in front of you, in the view of the scholar wearing gold-rimmed glasses, uses locking technology that cannot be created by today's human science. Such a sci-fi approach. The scholar wearing gold-rimmed spectacles felt that it was impossible for humans in super-ancient civilizations to control it. Although he was an eyewitness to the entire excavation of this ruins, he still couldn't help but associate such technology with aliens. Stand up. A group of scholars and scientists are very enthusiastic. The cold officer became more and more vigilant and solemn. No one knew whether there was any terrible danger behind the bronze door. Hydra has done a lot of exploring ruins around the world, and the losses have been heavy. Not long ago, Officer Yin Lang heard that a large group of people had been lost in Egypt. He didn't want to suffer the same fate. I'm sure I won't be that unlucky. The cold officer prayed very uneasily in his heart. He stared at the bronze door. However, after a series of changes, the bronze gate seemed to suddenly get stuck, and the silky little snakes that were originally flowing on it all stopped. What's going on? Why didn't you open it? The cold officer couldn't help but frown and look at the scientists and scholars. We don't know. Maybe the key is broken. A scholar in his 30s answered with an uncertain tone. Bang! Huge amounts of gunfire. It was almost so frightening that the other scholars trembled. Everyone looked at the cold officer in horror. He just raised his hand and fired without warning, killing the scholar who had answered the question before. What I want is not your guess. What I want is a definite answer. I hope you won't let me down again. The cold officer put down the strange pistol in his hand. He originally drew it out to prevent possible dangers inside the bronze door, but now he has successfully established his authority with this pistol. He hopes that these scholars can serve Hydra-like cattle and horses. Serve. Okay. We understand. The faces of the remaining scholars and scientists were extremely pale, and their expressions could not suppress the horror. They looked at the location where there was only a pool of blood not far away, and their hearts were filled with fear. Hydra's terrifying firearms can integrate people. It is not a secret to them, but they did not expect to see the power of such firearms on their own people. Very good. Now, find a way for me to open this damn door. The cold officer was very satisfied with the attitude of the remaining scholars. At the urging of this terrible executioner, a group of scholars were also forced to stand in front of the bronze gate. I began to study this door that was still shining with blue light. Such a unique energy method is simply a masterpiece of God, compared to the scientific thinking of the scholar wearing gold-rimmed spectacles. The ricket scholar who had stood up before looked more like a theological researcher, and what he said in his mouth were words with a strong religious flavor. God? Ignorant old guy. This is just a relatively high-level gate created by the energy at the core of the universe. How does his builder deserve the title of God? The cold officer sneered behind the scholars. In the eyes of a Hydra officer who has been brainwashed by Red Skull, no existence can compare to their leader Red Skull. Red Skull is the god of all Hydra executives today, and they firmly believe that Red Skull will lead them to a glorious future. Officer Yin Lang's words only represent his own views and are not recognized by other scholars. However, dozens of scholars dare not refute Officer Yin Lang's views. The colleagues who were eliminated before are the best warning. They are indeed scientists and scholars, but they are not precious resources that cannot be replaced. I think it's in disrepair. Maybe we need to fix some things. Such a creation will not be affected by time. I think there may be something missing besides this cube key. Is there some puzzle mechanism that we need to solve? A kind of scholar feels desolate in his heart, but he has to force himself to continue studying the gate, regardless of the current situation. They actually really want to unlock the secret of the super ancient times. Just when a group of scholars, forced by the cold officer, were thinking about studying the bronze door, they were in the Sulian City Cafe at the other end. Chu Mu, who was enjoying his leisure time, suddenly stopped at the coffee cup he raised to his lips. His eyes narrowed and he looked into the distance. Just now, he once again felt the aura calling him from outside the world before. When he was exiled from the universe by the Ancient One, Chu Mu once sensed a voice calling him on the earth at this point in time. However, something that called him disappeared after guiding Chu Mu back to the correct universe, but then took him to the incorrect time node. During this time, Chu Mu tried to use his supervision more than once to observe the situation in other places on the earth, but he failed to find any strange places. He never expected it, before arriving in New York to search for clues. That strange call appeared again. Only because the induction came too suddenly. And the maintenance time is also very short. It doesn't even last for 0.01 microsecond. Chu Mu still failed to successfully lock the position. After that kind of feeling appeared again, it seemed to be blocked again by something or something. Moreover, where it exists, there is definitely something that can interfere with position locking. If Chu Mu's sensing ability is compared to a GPS positioning system, then the location where the voice calling him must have an anti-positioning device. Otherwise, with Chu Mu's life level, he should be able to lock it in even in a short period of time. That direction. Although Chu Mu was still unable to pinpoint the specific location, he was a life level stronger than when he sensed the call before. In addition, originally is now in the Marvel universe, so although he has not successfully positioned himself, he has determined a general direction. The West. It is the direction in which the United States exists. However, it seems to be much further away than the United States, beyond the land where the United States exists. There is no way to lock in a specific location. Chu Mu can only understand that the direction he is heading now should be correct. It seems that it's time for the trip to end. Chu Mu didn't expect that he would feel it a second time. He felt that he probably shouldn't continue to relax. The mysterious thing calling him showed a kind of urgency just now, as if it wanted to urge him to hurry over. But soon the other party's call was met by the screen again. Although Chu Mu couldn't figure out what it was that was calling him, or what kind of life it was, he thought it would be better to find it as soon as possible. Anyway, the pleasant road trip can only be said to have come to an end. Thinking of Wolverine who was with him, Chu Mu also made an immediate decision. Wolverine's condition is certainly unusual, but he can take care of business and then come back to find Wolverine from the future. Think of this. Chu Mu's figure also disappeared in the coffee shop in an instant, leaving only a sum of money enough to pay for coffee and consumption on the seat where he sat. Soon after, the beautiful waitress who came to ask Chu Mu if she had any other needs, and also tried to ask for Chu Mu's contact information, was stunned by this scene for a long time. She looked left and right. I have been confused for a long time and still can't figure out when the handsome guy who I finally mustered up the courage to have something to do with him tonight left the coffee shop. In fact, Chu Mu had already found Wolverine in the city when the waiter came. Surprising things happen one after another. That special call appeared again before, and now Wolverine has unexpected changes. When Chu Mu found Wolverine Logan, this guy had just repaired a dilapidated old car. He walked up to Wolverine Logan before he mentioned that they should go their separate ways. When he saw Wolverine Logan, he rolled his eyes and fell to the ground. There is no problem with life status. Breathing is also normal. The heartbeat is neither fast nor slow. He suddenly fell to the ground and passed out. The big man's sudden unconsciousness attracted the attention of many people passing by. Someone is unconscious on the street, which is naturally a rare thing to encounter. Some people are calling the police, and some people are looking at Chu Mu, who is closest to Wolverine Logan, with strange eyes. They probably thought Chu Mu had launched some surprise attack on Wolverine Logan. This year, there are many cases of people being killed in the street because of grudges. Due to Chu Mu's strong physique and perfect figure, no one dared to come up to do justice. At most, some people stood in the distance and pointed at Chu Mu and Wolverine who fell to the ground. After they came into contact with Chu Mu's gaze, they were frightened and quickly left the borrowing. What happened? Chu Mu also didn't figure out Wolverine Logan's status. He checked it out, but it was discovered that Wolverine Logan's soul state was somewhat disordered. As this so? Chu Mu immediately had guesses and inferences. He frowned slightly, and then saw Wolverine Logan's eyelids begin to tremble, as he had already passed out. After a while, Wolverine Logan opened his eyes and stood up from the ground, holding his head that was so dizzy and aching. The first thing he saw after regaining consciousness was Chu Mu, who was very close at hand. Brush, Wolverine Logan, who has experienced several wars and has some sequelae of war, directly ejected a pair of sharp bone claws from his hands. He looked at Chu Mu with vigilance and annoyance, and roared with a questioning tone, "Damn it! Who are you? Why am I here?" 2 questions in succession. However, the current state of Wolverine Logan is clearly explained. The soul of Wolverine Logan from the future is obviously no longer in this past body, and the one who controls the body is the Wolverine Logan who originally existed in this time and space. Soul. Wolverine Logan spent several days getting along with Chu Mu in the future. Now that Wolverine Logan has recovered, she has no memory at all. It was like he took a long, long sleep, and then woke up to find that the environment had changed drastically. Naturally, he became worried about his situation. And where's Sabretooth? The memory of this Wolverine Logan still remains from the time he fought Sabretooth before, so he naturally reacts in a deep crisis. Under normal circumstances, Wolverine Logan is actually very good at hiding his differences in front of the public. His current reaction can only be said to be a stress reaction caused by the memory of his battle with Sabretooth. He shouted angrily at Chu Mu. Shouted. What can Chu Mu say? Tell Wolverine Logan to go back to the jungle now and see if Sabretooth's body has been eaten up. Are you an accomplice of Sabretooth? Wolverine Logan felt an extremely terrifying danger from Chu Mu's body, and the hairs all over his body stood on end. As expected, time will settle people and make them more interesting. You are really not a friendly person now. Chu Mu sighed with emotion. He found that the current Wolverine Logan and the future one have completely different personalities. The current young Wolverine Logan's personality is more like Sabretooth's, but her inner kindness and moral values are much stronger than Sabretooth's. What are you saying? Wolverine Logan didn't know what was happening to him, so naturally he couldn't understand Chu Mu's words at all. The memory of being blocked by Sabretooth before was still flashing in his mind. I mean, haha, see you in the future. Chu Mu chuckled, and then, with Wolverine Logan's confused look in her eyes, she switched into a black shirt, and then it shot into the sky like a cannonball. In situ. Only the trampled floor debris was left, as well as the stunned Wolverine Logan, and the crowd who covered their mouths and kept screaming in surprise. Oh my god. That man is flying. He's flying into the sky. Did you see it? Someone is flying into the sky. Is he some kind of super ability person? Or is it a supernatural weapon developed by the military? It's incredible. Am I dreaming? Did someone take a photo of it? What happened to that person's clothes? He changed his look instantly. The crowd who witnessed Chu Mu soaring into the sky were originally paying attention to Wolverine Logan's situation, but were unexpectedly startled by Chu Mu's sudden movement. Wolverine Logan, who had always been on guard against Chu Mu, was also frightened. What the hell? Why did that guy who didn't look simple fly away without saying anything? Is there a flying mutant in this world? Can he change his costume in 1 second? The most important thing is, what does that person's phrase, "see you in the future," mean before he flies away? Wolverine Logan, who didn't read much, had a confused expression on his face, just when the entire neighborhood of Sulian City began to fall into a kind of chaos. Chu Mu has flown directly to a place where ordinary people cannot see. Who can resist the temptation of admiring the Earth in the universe? Chu Mu did not burst into rapidity, but Rao is so. His speed is also frighteningly fast. Just for a moment. The clouds in the sky he broke through exploded, and circles of airflow continued to counterattack, pushing him to a height that even an airplane could not reach. His speed. Not to mention just ordinary people. Even those satellite spy monitoring equipment in the future will definitely be difficult to capture such a speed, and can only roughly observe a blurry figure. The sound of wind blasted in Chu Mu's ears, and he directly hit the atmosphere and continued flying, straight into the cold and terrifying outer space. The Earth now does look much more beautiful than it will be a few decades ago. Chu Mu stared at the Earth that has not suffered too much industrial pollution. He let out a heartfelt sigh. Here, everything was silent, without a trace of sound, and the blue planet was directly visible to Chu Mu. Before time travel, Chu Mu once saw a set of pictures, which showed the overall appearance of the Earth over the past few decades. Visibly to the naked eye, it has changed from blue to a dull tone. Now Chu Mu has also seen with his own eyes that the heavy burden brought to the Earth by the development of modern industry will indeed seriously affect the Earth's nature. Otherwise, there is a saying that human beings are a cancer on the Earth. In the universe, I feel like a fish in water. Chu Mu is in a vacuum universe. Not only does she not feel uncomfortable at all, but she also likes this vacuum environment very much. His divine body does not need to breathe at all. Then, it can also continuously absorb the purest cosmic energy in the universe. Although it is somewhat different from the Kryptonian method of becoming stronger by basking in the sun, the beings in the level single universe can also strengthen themselves by absorbing the energy of the universe. This is like the kind of practice in the fantasy world. Slow but effective, Chu Mu opened his arms while swallowing cosmic energy. Behind the black shirt, the sun's rays are shining. The black cloak also looks real. He truly experienced the feeling of embracing the Earth, the feeling of everything is. The experience of below me is absolutely fascinating. It's no wonder that many people get lost in the powerful power. Only by reaching this level can they appreciate the scenery that can be appreciated at this level. That feeling of the world surrendering at my feet. It's really too wonderful. Chu Mu was actually a little intoxicated. He lowered his head and looked at the Earth. Even if he was in outer space, as long as he ignited the divine fire in his eyes, every inch of the Earth would. The fallen things will also appear in front of his eyes with incomparable clarity. God's vision. Chu Mu can feel everything on Earth. Whether it's the animals on the prairie or the men and women doing sports hiding under the eaves, everything in the world is presented before his eyes. Definitely. Still couldn't find the place he was looking for, but this was to be expected. Chu Mu was just taking a look around the Earth. He felt a throbbing feeling that all living beings are ants. Remarkable. What are ants? In fact, it means that in the vision of God, all living beings are equal. Everything is an ant, in the eyes of high-level life. Elephants are ants. Tigers are ants. Even those mountains and rivers, are all ants. Needless to say, humans are the most powerful little skinny monkeys on the planet. All the same, such description and classification have no derogatory meaning at all. It's not like Chu Mu is lost in power. It's just a fact without any modification. Any living thing. Under Chu Mu's current vision, it's hard not to be called an ant. Even the most huge amounts of living things are too small. It is conceivable that if a person were to watch the world like this for thousands of years, all the creatures in his eyes would be. Of course, there will no longer be an existence comparable to himself. Even this planet seems a bit small to me. Chu Mu gently stretched out his hand, as if to pinch the earth, but also as if he was afraid that the earth would be too fragile and be destroyed by him accidentally. This feeling is very wonderful. Definitely, Chu Mu did not immerse himself in it for too long. He still remembered the reason why he ran to outer space. There. Chu Mu locked the position in New York and suddenly fell down. His whole body was like a meteor, falling towards the earth with a shining arc. If he wants to find the voice calling him, New York is still the place he must go. His intuition tells him that he can find exact clues in this most special city in the Marvel Universe. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky. In this era when air defense alerts were not tight, Chu Mu fell into New York City quietly. But he didn't expect to take it. As soon as I landed, I encountered a very bloody thing. New York secretly falls into the night. The place Chu Mu chose to land was where his own star building was located in the future time and space, but in this era there were several old residential buildings standing on the same land. New York as a whole seems far less developed and prosperous than New York in later generations. This is also quite normal. The current status of the United States is actually completely different from the situation promoted by many blockbusters of the United States. It is far from becoming a world hegemon. It can only be regarded as a strong one among the great powers. In many things, it will even be overwhelmed by the people of Great Britain. Yes, the economic and technological development level of the United States at this point in the world is actually far inferior to that of the real giants. The true rise of the United States. It was during the process of World War E that it continued to develop, and after the end of World War E, it sucked the blood of the world, and it achieved its dominant position decades later. Without any exaggeration. New York now. It seems that it is not even as prosperous as the Sulian city where Chu Mu stayed before. The changes of the times are really sad. Chu Mu fell steadily into the alleyway between residential buildings. He thought his landing was inconspicuous, however. But he never expected it. Although he was not discovered by the United States Homeland Defense System, a group of guys who like to wander around at night happened to discover his traces. Over there. The meteor falling from the sky is over there. Chu Mu had just walked out of the alley after landing when he encountered a guy blocking his way. They were a group of young men and women dressed in flashy clothes, who looked more hippie-like than the serious hippies on TV. Every man and woman wears colorful things, and their faces and ears are covered with metal ornaments. One of the strong men also wore a huge bull ring on his nose. Someone got there before us. After seeing Chu Mu, these people were stunned for a moment, and then stopped Chu Mu. 7 or 8 people immediately surrounded Chu Mu. You guy. Did you pick up something that fell from the sky? Take it out quickly. A man with a slicked back hair warned Chu Mu with a fierce look on his face. Other men and women also looked at Chu Mu with full eyes. Not good. In the eyes of these people, except with bad intentions. There is also a kind of greed that is not quite right. My luck is really bad. Chu Mu definitely didn't care about the threats from these guys. He just sighed slightly in his heart. He had encountered such things as being blocked and robbed by gangsters before, but he never thought that he could encounter such a coincidence in the past time and space. Isn't this a bit too bloody? You'd better take it out. Valuable meteorites are not something you can own. The young man with the big back threatened Chu Mu again. His eyes were dangerous. You want a meteorite? Then maybe you can go to the sky and pick one yourself. Chu Mu raised his eyebrows and looked at the young man with a thick back. The calm expression on his face made the young man with a big back slightly stunned. Not afraid of us. The young man with a thick back looked a little jealous when he looked at Chu Mu's face, which was countless times more handsome than his own, so he suddenly felt an unknown fire rising in his heart. It seems that I have to teach you a lesson. Only then do you know how to do as I say. The young man with the big back grinned directly and whispered to Chu Mu in a bad tone. The teeth he showed were actually lots of sharp fangs. Although that won't give you a chance to live, at least it will make your death less painful. I will torture you severely, the cake that was delivered to your door, and then take away the belongings from your broken body. Our valuable meteorite. The young man with the big back grinned and said harsh words. He wanted to see the fear on Chu Mu's face. This was the favorite part of their group. No other colorful young people also showed their fangs like him. These guys who are blocking the forbidden grazing are actually not ordinary humans. It turns out to be a vampire. Chu Mu had noticed something was wrong with this group of people before. Never thought about it. They were actually a group of vampires living during World War E. Unlike those vampires in later generations who were not short of money, it can be seen that the current vampires may not have any particularly stable financial resources. Not only would they travel so far to search for a meteorite, but even the clothes they wore were obviously very cheap. It would be a pity to eat such a handsome young man. Curry, why don't you let me take him back and have a good taste before serving him to the dining table? An extremely lustful female vampire, probably attracted by Chu Emu's skin, stared at Chu Mu greedily and spoke to the young man with a big back. No, 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 Mina, you can't take this guy away, I will kill him here. The young man with a big back turned his head and glanced at the female vampire with scarlet eyes. His status was obviously much higher than that of the lustful female vampire who spoke. The female vampire who proposed to take Chu Mu home did not dare to continue to refute, but looked at Chu Mu with a rather pitiful look. The other two female vampires also showed a general expression of regret. Had the same expression. Obviously, the female vampires in this group are all perverts. How can I put it this way? In fact, this situation is understandable. Chu Emu's appearance conditions, in this era when makeup technology is not popular. It is definitely a level that can shock many women. Same. You will also be jealous of the same sex. No, after the female vampire interrupted, several male vampires looked at Chu Mu even more unkindly, their eyes full of cruelty and dissatisfaction. Has this already begun to determine my ending? Tisk tisk, I think you should seek my personal opinion on this kind of matter. Chu Mu curled her lips. He could probably guess why he met the vampire. The city at night is not safe at all, and those who dare to move outside are more or less normal people. There are washing powder gentlemen, gangsters and killers, and busy street women. The city at night is a paradise for crime. Similarly, in cities without surveillance, night is also the best time for vampires to hunt. This group of vampires seems to be looking for prey tonight. Only. The appearance of Chu Mu attracted the attention of this group of vampires. The light when he fell just now must have been very conspicuous to vampires with night vision. Therefore, a group of vampires with little money mistakenly thought that there was a meteorite for them to take and went straight to look for it. It's reasonable, but it's just that when you first arrive in New York, you encounter an abnormal situation. Isn't it a bit too outrageous? Is it really more difficult to survive in New York than in other places? Although Chu Mu guessed that he was found. Process, but he still couldn't help but complain in his heart. It seemed that the people of New York were doomed to be in trouble in this era. Can only say, it may be really difficult for an ordinary person to die in the Marvel world, especially in New York. It is hard to imagine how lucky ordinary people who can live in New York for a long time have to be. To some extent, those New Yorkers who can die may also be destiny. People. Fortunately, I'm not an ordinary person. Chu Mu looked at the group of vampires in front of him with a calm expression. Human, we don't like your calmness. The big-backed young man looked at Chu Mu with a dissatisfied look on his face. His red eyes shone with a dangerous light, and he felt very annoyed by Forbidden Emu's calm attitude. Should I panic and cry out for help, saying that I encountered a group of vampires? Chu Mu responded directly. The attitude he showed directly made the young man with a big back who wanted to appreciate Chu Emu's fear frown severely. The other vampires also showed their sullen expressions one after another. They seemed to be offended. In their opinion, Chu Mu should be scared to death. You may not know what you're getting into yet. The hoarse voice of the young man with a big back was filled with deep malice. You should be afraid of us. Facing us, a group of existences that you can't defeat at all, you should show the most extreme fear in your life. Begging for mercy from us, kneeling on the ground, crying for your father and mother, that's how you should react. The young man with a big back hair tried to get Chu Mu to behave according to his ideas. Therefore, unreachable, he opened his mouth again, revealing his extremely sharp fangs, accompanied by a low roar. It was as if he was trying to scare the shit out of Chu Mu with his inhuman image. What disgusting teeth, it seems you don't have a private dentist. There was even a hint of ridicule in Chu Mu's words. He was definitely not frightened by the vampire in front of him. It can only be said that the ignorant are fearless. You know, even Dracula, the ancestor of vampires, came, and Dracula did not dare to show off in front of Chu Mu, but a few of the lowest vampires did. On the contrary, he is pretending. Yes. This group of vampires, completely the worst kind among the vampire group. In addition to the inherent racial characteristics of vampires, supernatural abilities have not even been born, and the vampire blood in the body is simply weak and pitiful. You sharp-tongued guy. You have to pay for your arrogance. I'm going to suck your blood dry. Watch you rolling on the ground and die in pain. The young man with a big back was full of anger, and he just exploded. He rushed towards Chu Mu at a very fast speed. Definitely. This one is very fast. Just relative to ordinary people. Actually. In Chu Mu's eyes, he was completely unworthy. Hee. Even before the big-backed young man disappeared, Chu Mu had already lightly punched the open space in front of him. Immediately, as soon as he punched out his fist, the young man with a big back appeared in front of Chu Mu's fist as if he was cooperating in an act. Bump, this blow hit the big-backed young man firmly in the face. Even if Chu Mu didn't use any force at all, but even if it was just the inertia generated by the big-backed young man's own burst of speed, the collision of the big-backed young man with Chu Mu's fist still caused all the sharp teeth in the big-backed young man's mouth to break, and his whole body seemed to be broken. The string kite flew out. He drew an extremely awkward arc in midair, boom. The man with the big back knocked down a wall and was buried among the broken bricks. However, Chu Mu could clearly see the young man with the big back among the bricks through his powerful eyesight. There is already more air coming out and less air coming in. Collision at high speed. This vampire, who has speed but no strength, has many bones on his body directly broken, and the internal flesh and blood organs are also severely misaligned. As a low blood clan, his self-healing ability is relatively slow. Definitely. If he wasn't a blood clan, such injuries would definitely have caused him to die on the spot. Come on. Kill this guy. Kill him. The young man with the big back finally regained his breath and spit out blood. He struggled to get up but felt dizzy again. Raise your hand and wipe it. He smeared something like snowflakes on his hands. It turned out that his brains had been beaten out, which directly made the big-backed young man extremely embarrassed and angry. I want him dead. The big-backed young man uses the blood of his race to self-heal. While yelling at his companions, at the moment, in addition to his hysterical anger, he was also filled with incredible horror. Always strong. Just one photo was shot away. That kind of method that seemed to predict in advance. The person he and others encountered was probably not an ordinary person. The young man with the big back hair felt the terror of Chu Mu. He was a little uneasy. But most of them still want to take revenge. As a self-proclaimed noble blood clan, he would never think of running away in despair. How dare you hit our boss? Is this guy a werewolf? No matter what he is. There are so many of us. Come together. Kill him. Those who offend the noble blood clan must pay the price. This group of vampires has limited knowledge. It is not possible to judge the gap between them and Chu Mu very well. Ever since, they rushed towards Chu Mu in a swarm. Or rather, they were a spiritual boy and a spiritual girl. These guys thought they had encountered the same supernatural life, and they couldn't help but become excited. They roared and flew towards Chu Mu, feeling full of confidence. Able to tear Chu Mu into pieces. However, before these vampires could get close. I don't want to play any games with you, Chu Mu's voice fell. He lowered his hands. There is a mysterious luster flowing in the eyes. Pa bang bang. Immediately afterwards, there were waves of crisp cracking sounds that continued for a while. The heads of those vampires all exploded directly, and it was very scary to see a watermelon being smashed open, with blood and flesh flying everywhere, and brains flying everywhere. This is a headshot performed by Chu Mu using psychic powers. A very bad vampire. It's not difficult to blow their heads off. Before a group of vampires could react, only vague flesh and blood was left on their necks, and a complete head could not be seen at all. The headless corpse fell directly to the ground. Their recovery ability is not comparable to that of Sabretooth. Even Sabretooth died completely without his head. Naturally, these guys died immediately. Why do you weak people claim to be noble in front of me? Chu Mu slowly approached the young man with a big back and a trembling face, who had a look of horror and fear on his face. The vampire leader had no idea what was going on. What happened? How could it happen in a blink of an eye? All my brothers, sisters and children are gone? What happened tonight? It was completely beyond the expectations of the big-backed young man. He couldn't have imagined it. He just brought people from his family to find the fallen meteorite, but he encountered a massacre that was so outrageous that he felt like he was dreaming. The extremely powerful blood clan. How could he become as weak as a lamb? Lived for many years. The young man with a big back also consciously knows a lot. But he had never encountered anything like this before. Even the young man with a big back head had no idea how Chu Mu killed his own people. The extraordinary ability of the high blood clan? Impossible. I didn't feel the unique pressure of the high-level blood clan from the guy in front of me. Besides, it was not like I had never seen the high-level blood clan before. Even the blood clan with titles were not as powerful as the man in front of him. For a moment, the young man with the big back hair felt infinite fear rising in his heart. He had absolutely no idea how to respond. Over the years they have been at the top of the Earth's food chain. Only the heavy firepower weapons that have appeared in recent years can pose a threat to their immortal race. Before humans developed heavy firepower weapons, all humans were food in the eyes of the blood clan. It was only after the development of heavy firepower weapons that they restrained themselves a lot. Today's poverty is due to the fact that the young people with big back heads do not know how to make money but only rob. Originally, they also expected to pick up a meteorite and sell it for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend, but now, looking at the corpses on the ground, the big-backed young man felt filled with regret. Family. I risked my life in it. It's your turn. Chu Mu deliberately refused to kill the young man with his slicked back hair, because he didn't want to take advantage of this guy who had been provoking him in various ways. It is simply too cheap for this noisy low-level blood clan to let the young man with the big back head die like other vampires with their heads wrapped. When Chu Mu's eyes looked over, the young man with a big back suddenly trembled all over his body. Chu Mu's cold eyes made him almost lose his voice in fear. Don't run again. We'll definitely die. There seemed to be a voice shouting and roaring in my heart. Monster. You are a monster. Damn it. What kind of monster are you? The big-backed young man was simply frightened crazy by Chu Mu's methods. While he was stumbling and trying to escape, he was shouting at Chu Mu in great fear. A vampire actually calls someone a monster. The picture is also quite funny. Because he was so panicked, the big-backed young man's shoes ran away. After he fell to the ground, he rolled and crawled around trying to get away from Chu Mu. Can only say, such behavior makes absolutely no sense. Can you run away? The next moment Chu Mu appeared on the way the big-backed young man was escaping. The big-backed young man's face changed as if he had seen a ghost. He could not see any trace of Chu Mu's movement at all, and he did not even know when Chu Mu moved. Just running. 1 second there was nothing in front of it. But it only takes 1 second. The big-backed young man found Chu Mu standing in front of him. He was so frightened by the sudden appearance of Chu Mu that he started to tremble again. The dynamic vision of a vampire is much stronger than that of ordinary humans, but despite this, he found that he still failed to capture Chu Mu's movement trajectory. How fast does this have to be? Faster than a bullet. The big-backed young man's heart was filled with fear. He regrets it. What kind of monster did I provoke? Some things need to be paid for. Chu Mu's voice was smooth and gentle, but it was infinitely terrifying in the ears of the young man with a thick back. How could there be such a powerful and terrifying existence on Earth? The big-backed young man was trembling all over, and he began to have uncontrollable thoughts. This kind of speed, which is completely unhuman and cannot even be matched by the blood clan, has never been seen before. It is impossible for such a terrifying existence to exist in New York City. The guy in front of me, where does it come from? Suddenly, an idea flashed in the mind of the big-backed young man. You are that meteorite. The pupils of the young man's eyes contracted, and an extremely terrifying guess emerged in his mind. New York. There has never been such a scary guy before. The man in front of me, definitely an outsider. Combined with the previous movements in the sky, the big-backed young man began to feel more and more that the light he and others observed just now might not be a falling meteorite at all. That light. It's probably the terrifying guy in front of me who doesn't look like a human at all. This is an alien life. So, he is so powerful that even a blood clan like him feels terrified. Chu Mu was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the big-backed man guessed it right by mistake. Definitely, aliens and stuff are definitely just a passing thought of young people with big backs. What outsiders say is pretty much the same. Chu Mu peered into the shallow thinking of the young man with a big back and had a clear grasp of the thoughts of this low-level vampire. The answer is correct, but there is no reward. Chu Mu slowly walked towards the young man with a big back, and his words seemed to carry extremely heavy pressure. Plop. The big-backed young man just knelt down on the ground and asked to let me go. Please let me go so that I can help you conquer the Earth. Obviously, this big-backed young man has some great ideas. It is probably also related to the alien legends that are popular in this era. He actually thinks that Chu Mu is an alien who came to conquer the Earth. Street stall literature about aliens developed most strongly during World War E. It is special to attract some vampires to cry. I can only say that it agrees with the advocacy of many scientists. It cannot be separated. Scientists in this era have extremely limited understanding of the universe, so some scientists hold the idea that there are many civilizations in the solar system. First of all, I have no interest in conquering the Earth at all. Secondly, Chu Mu walked up to the young man with a big back. From him, the big-backed young man only felt an extremely dangerous aura. No. I don't want to die. The big-backed young man who was kneeling on the ground saw that something was wrong. He was about to react, but then he discovered with a face full of horror that his body seemed to be restrained by some kind of force emperor. Couldn't move at all. Chu Mu's psychokinesis was applied to the young man with a big back, let alone a low-level blood clan. Even if this guy was the prince of the blood clan, he wouldn't have the ability to resist. I have no habit of letting go of my enemies. Even if an ant raises his sword towards me, my habit is always to crush the ant to death. Chu Mu stood in front of the young man with a big back. He looked down and directly grabbed the head of the young man with a big back, because the young man with a big back showed an extremely frightened expression on his face. He wanted to make a sound, but his throat was pinched by Chu Mu's psychokinesis, and he could only make a noise similar to the quacking of a duck. I actually gave you a chance to live. Chu Mu's voice fell. Immediately afterwards, with his hands gently exerting force, the head of the young man with a big back was torn off by him, blood splattered everywhere, and the neck without the head was like a fountain. Definitely. The fountain sprays no matter how powerful it is. But no blood splashed onto Chu Mu. Such a simple and unpretentious way to die. Young people with big backs are definitely in more pain than those who have their heads shot. You know, ordinary people still have a few seconds to think after beheading. The powerful vitality of a vampire allows the young man's head to remain active for a period of time after being separated from his body. The vampire head in his hand was roaring in pain, its expression abnormally distorted. Chu Mu threw his head to the ground with an expressionless expression. As his foot suddenly stepped on it, the young man with a big back was completely killed by him with a headshot. Physical headshots. Perhaps a little more unpretentious than the previous head pulling. Taking out a tissue and wiping his hands, Chu Mu was about to leave the alley. He turned around. As soon as I reached the exit of the alley, I felt the traces of life of a vampire resurrecting among the corpses of the vampires behind me. The god who controls death, Chu Mu is particularly sensitive to life and death. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Hoo. The female vampire who was previously called Mina by the young man with a big back and was the first to take Chu Mu back for squeezing, was lying in the middle of a group of corpses of her companions, gasping for air. She was scared in her heart, but she didn't dare to make any sound at all. The feeling of death. It was simply the worst feeling Mina had ever experienced in her life. She didn't know who she and others had provoked, but she knew very well that she could only escape this disaster by disguising herself as a corpse. When Mina heard the approaching footsteps, she felt that her heart was directly in her throat, and she began to pray crazily in her heart that she would never be discovered. Damn it. Give us all the blood clan. Why hasn't that monster come yet? Leave. There was more and more fear and panic in my heart. Mina listened to the increasingly clear footsteps and did not dare to make any more noise. She even held her breath. How to say? Vampires can indeed stop breathing briefly. But this may be able to fool ordinary people, but it is impossible to fool Chu Mu. How could a death lord like him not be able to distinguish between a living person and a dead man? Your body seems a little weird. You were not killed by me like your companions. You can even repair the injury of losing your head? Chu Mu stopped where Mina was lying. His tone was filled with a little exclamation and a bit of teasing about Mina's behavior of pretending to be dead. Mina knew that her perfectly repaired head had exposed herself, and she was very upset as to why her awakening ability could not be repaired slower all of a sudden. Spare me. I didn't provoke you. It's all Curry's fault. Just let me go. I'm willing to do anything for you. Seeing that she could no longer hide, Mina made a quick decision and got up and kowtowed to Chu Mu. Her words were full of fear and desire for survival. Let me see how strong your self-healing ability is, Chu Mu said, directly using psychokinesis to break Mina's neck again. He didn't see Mina's repair process just now. Wow. Because Chu Mu's psychokinesis was too rough, it directly caused Mina's head to rotate 360 degrees on her neck. The skin and flesh of her neck were broken, scarlet blood continued to flow out, and her head did not explode when she recovered. The recovery speed is even faster than Wolverine. After a burst of flesh and blood squirming, the female vampire returned to normal after a while. Amidst the sound of sparse bones interlacing, the originally broken neck bones were repaired. Even among vampires who are proud of their powerful self-healing ability, such a degree of repair is not possible. The speed is definitely considered rare. Those top vampires probably don't have such speed. Perhaps. Not even a broken heart can truly kill this vampire? Just do it. Chu Mu directly reached out and took out Mina's heart. Mina, who had just recovered and was still frightened, only had time to let out a miserable cry. No. A big hole opened in his chest. Chu Mu took out a beating heart and crushed it in his hand until it exploded into a mist of blood. How to say? Chu Mu originally thought that a female vampire who lost her heart could repair the damage to her body as quickly as she did when she lost her head. However, something he didn't expect happened. After her heart was taken out and crushed by Chu Mu, the female vampire who originally showed an ability beyond Wolverine's self-healing suddenly froze. The heart-damaged corpse fell heavily to the ground like a sculpture. The big hole in her chest has not been repaired, and the lost heart has not grown back. Obviously, the heart may be her Achilles' heel. If you lose your head, it will be repaired, but if you lose your heart, it will instantly become cold. What is the principle of this? Chu Mu sighed silently with some regret. He seemed to have suddenly broken a toy, and his expression became a little dull. After curling his lips, the blazing divine fire burst out from Chu Mu's eyes. The corpses all over the ground were annihilated by his divine fire. Even if there was someone awakening ability, there would never be a chance to get up again. Finished cleaning up the scene. Chu Mu used the ability of 1-second outfit change to change into a new set of casual clothes. This is the super ability brought by his former identity as fashionista. After tidying up the corners of his clothes, he quickly walked out of Zhaozi. The urban construction of New York during this period was complex, with one street connected to another and many intersecting alleys in between. Such an environment, plus the pattern of the world. The security situation will naturally not be very good. The forbidden animals and vampires had made so much noise on the street before, but they didn't attract even a single family to open the door to see what was going on. One can imagine. How chaotic is New York today? Perhaps the killings and gang fights at night have become something people in this city are accustomed to. It cannot be said that everyone is not disturbed by the movements of Chu Mu and the vampires. It can only be said that the residents will basically not poke their heads out to check after being disturbed. Gang war. Maybe people watching the excitement will also suffer. The citizens of New York have not yet encountered any major crises in the future, but they have shown excellent adaptability since this era. Definitely. If the father measures too much, there will always be some stupid people who are not afraid of death. As soon as Chu Mu walked out of the alley and before he reached the street, he saw a short-haired young man walking around the corner with his head peeping out. "Sir, I thought I heard a scream over there just now." This short-haired young man was extremely thin, and his height was not up to par. Not only that, he was completely different from the gang members, laundry detergent addicts, and gangsters who wandered around at night. He didn't look like someone who would come out to have fun at night. Chu Mu saw this thin young man. Also a little surprised. Did not expect. He was actually able to meet this guy in New York. Yes, he was another acquaintance, but a character husband that Chu Mu had never seen before in the future. The short-haired young man is much shorter than Chu Mu. The body shape is also extremely thin. Compared with Chu Mu, who has perfect body proportions and extremely explosive lines, the short-haired young man is like a thin monkey. He can't even reach Chu Mu's shoulders when he stands in front of Chu Mu. Chu Mu's perfect body shape, while making the young man with short hair feel ashamed. It also made the short-haired young man a little timid. But he still had the courage to speak to Chu Mu stammeringly. "First, sir, I just saw you coming over there, and I thought you might have seen something there." The short-haired young man swallowed his saliva and tried his best to explain the reason for his inquiry. At the moment, his heart was filled with envy of Chu Mu's height and body shape. If only I were as tall as this. The short-haired young man's shallow thinking was imagining that he had been bullied by other children since he was a child because of his thin body. What do you think happened over there? Chu Mu raised her eyebrows at the short-haired young man in front of her, already confirming the short-haired young man's identity. Ah. The short-haired young man never expected that he would encounter a wave of rhetorical questions. He hesitated for a moment. Or he expressed his guess, it should be those gangsters who like to rob at night. They encountered your counterattack and taught you a lesson, sir? The tone of the short-haired young man was a bit uncertain. His speculations were based on his understanding of the city, and he also felt that Chu was not easy to mess with such a strong body. It should be very simple to kill the gangsters. Matter. You're right. They learned a very profound lesson. Chu smiled brightly, and the sunny smile made the short-haired young man slightly stunned. He obviously didn't hear the deep meaning of Chu's words, and felt that he had guessed the situation correctly, with a somewhat emotional expression on his face. Sir, you are so powerful. It's not like me. I was beaten up this afternoon and they locked me in a trash can for several hours. If it hadn't been for me, I found a dagger in the trash can and pried open the lock cover. It is estimated that I will have to wait until tomorrow to be released by the garbage collection workers. The short-haired young man had a happy expression on his face. The reason why he was still on the street so late at night can be easily guessed from what he said. In fact, if you carefully observe the short-haired young man's face, you can find many traces of being beaten. There are varying degrees of bruises on the short-haired young man's face and arms. Calf position. There were also traces of some kind of scratches, which were as big as a palm, and were now condensed into a dark scab of blood. Are you nearby? Chu looked down at the short-haired young man in front of her. This poor guy is really too short. That dumpster right over there. As the short-haired young man spoke, he pointed to the alleyway not far away. Chu could see that there was indeed a pried open trash can in the dark alleyway. I actually heard your voice just now. I wanted to come out and help you, but you seem to have solved the problem after I opened the trash can. The short-haired young man scratched his head and felt a little embarrassed. Chu could tell that what he said was indeed the truth from the heart, rather than the nice words that many people said with their mouths. Trapped in a dumpster and trying to help other people in danger. Can only say, as expected of you. Steve Rogers. You can't protect yourself, and you still want to help me solve my trouble? Chu's funny expression made the short-haired young man very embarrassed. But the short-haired young man said firmly, even though my physical fitness is not as good as yours, I can still fight pretty well. Besides, having one more person gives me more strength when I encounter those gangsters. They like to carry out sneak attacks behind others' backs. Steve Rogers, a young man with short hair, said to Chu in a very serious tone. The name. Many people should be very familiar with it. That's right. The short-haired young man that Chu met now was Captain America Steve, a 50-50 opponent in the Marvel Universe, who seemed to be able to compete with anyone. Only. Compared to the Captain America who had a strong physique after receiving the strengthening of the super soldier serum, today's Captain America is still a thin young man. He is indeed not very tall, only about 1.6 meters tall. He might stand out in an island country, but in the United States, where heights are generally quite high, he can be considered a relatively short man. There were even many men in this period. People mocked him as a dwarf. Just like Uzumaki Naruto, a person destined to become the virgin, despite the terrible living environment, Steve Rogers still has a kind heart. It can be seen from the fact that this guy has no time to take care of himself but still wants to help Chu. Regardless of whether Steve Rogers can help or not, there are probably not many people in the world who can be as passionate as him. Although in the future Steve Rogers will show a double standard when it comes to Bucky. But, at least in most cases, Steve Rogers is still a proper virgin youth. Today, compared to his future maturity and stability, young Steve Rogers is a bit more naive and green. It can be seen that he is a young man with a lot of passion and no scheming. I remember before time travel, there were many people on the internet who criticized Captain America, but at least he has a much better character than a certain Duoluo third brother. Chu made a slight evaluation in her heart. Steve Rogers is not a perfect person, but he feels that he is more responsible and kind than most people. He will not scold others just because others like what he likes. There is a way to die. Sir. Why do you keep looking at me? Steve Rogers felt a little uncomfortable. He felt a little uncomfortable when Chu looked at him. Could it be? Have you met someone who likes fencing? Think of this. Steve Rogers suddenly felt a little creepy in his heart. He had been living at the bottom, and it could be said that he knew everything. For example, some wealthy and powerful upper-class people always have some special and BT interests. Steve Rogers observed Chu's dress and felt that Chu was definitely a very rich man, and he also had the kind of history of oppression that only those in power had. It is precisely because he felt the majesty brought by Chu that Steve Rogers unconsciously used the honorific when talking to Chu. I'm just thinking that there are not many people as enthusiastic as you. Don't worry, those gangsters probably won't come to trouble me again. Chu Mu smiled. He has a clear view of Steve Rogers' current thoughts. Ordinary people's thoughts are always hidden in shallow thinking. Then you should teach them a terrible lesson. Steve Rogers thought thoughtfully. He was indeed still a young and immature young man, and he did not think about Chu Mu's painful murder at all. It is also because he has lived in the city since he was a child. Although the city was chaotic during World War E, the most basic rule of law was still maintained, and even gun battles between gangs rarely affected ordinary people. Well, they must be unforgettable for lifetime. Chu Mu nodded in agreement. Vampires without souls are actually quite lucky. At least, after they were killed by Chu Mu, they did not have to suffer eternal pain in Chu Mu's decedent kingdom, like those in Apocalypse. Your strength is respected. Have you ever thought about joining the army? With your skills, you will definitely be able to make a difference on the battlefield. Steve Rogers' dream is to join the army. Therefore, when he saw someone as powerful as Chu Mu, he subconsciously wanted to take advantage of Chu Mu. In today's Captain America's view, Chu Mu can defeat a group of gangsters. His skills are definitely good, coupled with such a strong physical fitness. Just go to the battlefield. It will definitely be able to give those Nazis and evil countries a head-on blow. How can I put it? The idea of Captain America in his youth was indeed naive and simple. He has never really been to the battlefield, and he has not yet realized that today's war has undergone earth-shaking changes from before. Personal bravery is worthless in front of the torrent of steel. Definitely, if Chu Mu is really participating in the exhibition in person, it can indeed have a devastating effect, but just talking about ordinary warriors with strong bodies, they will not be able to defeat them on the battlefield. Got a bullet. Like the future myth of Captain America, basically it does not come from the frontal battlefield. Most of what he experienced were small-scale battles and beheading operations that went directly to local base camps. He could be regarded as the earliest extraordinary special forces soldier. If Steve Rogers were to be sent to a frontal battlefield, his role would not be much greater than that of other well-trained soldiers. To know. Many people simply don't know the horror of modern warfare. In large-scale battles, every cubic meter of air is covered with at least dozens of bullets. Not to mention a mortal body, even a heavy armored vehicle cannot last for too long. It is estimated that only mass production of super soldiers can play a decisive role. This is actually the reason why the United States military hid Captain America in the first place. Today's era. The concept of special operations has not yet been born. I am not from the United States, and I will definitely not fight the Second World War for the United States, so joining the army is left to you people with ideals and ambitions. Chu Mu spoke in a very tactful way. Unfortunately, the young Captain America lacks some emotional intelligence. The Nazis have affected the entire world. Everyone should have the obligation to resist them. You should not let down your ability and strong body. Steve Rogers' tone was serious, and the character of the Virgin was clearly revealed. Oh? Chu Mu doesn't like the Virgin, but he doesn't hate the Virgin either. The world is very complicated, and it does need the birth of some virgins. Facing Steve Rogers' stern words, Chu Mu's expression was noncommittal, and his eyes looked at Steve Rogers calmly. Chu Mu didn't say anything else, but his condescending gaze also made Steve Rogers feel a lot of pressure. The sounds of insects and small creatures in the city alleys all around seemed to become particularly noticeable. Chu Mu's deep eyes were like vortexes with a mysterious sense of oppression, just staring at the past. Steve Rogers just feels like his heart is pounding. Sir, sweat oozed from Steve Rogers' forehead. He couldn't help but have an illusion in his heart, as if what was standing in front of him was not a human being, but some kind of extremely dangerous and terrifying beast. He couldn't help but feel like he was rising. Feeling of fear. This was an experience Steve Rogers had never had since he was a child. Even when he met a military general a few years ago, he had never felt such real oppression. It depends on what level of person you are. How can you have such a sense of majesty? Steve Rogers, as the bottom of society, is completely unable to. After figuring out the answer to this question, he just gritted his teeth and tried his best not to make a fool of himself. About 5 minutes passed. Terrible oppression. It just started to fade away slowly. Steve Rogers felt as if a whole century had passed, and his clothes were completely soaked with his own sweat. The will is really strong, Chu Mu praised. Sir, what did you do? Steve Rogers looked at Chu Mu in confusion. The terrible feelings and encounters just now made him feel unbelievable and dreamy. Looking at Chu Mu in front of me, future Captain America has no idea what happened. To be honest, You shouldn't be here trying to convince me to join the army. It's meaningless. You should appear in the building over there. Chu Mew tried Steve Rogers on a whim, and indeed saw the iron-like will from Steve Rogers. The pressure just now. It would be an ordinary person. They have definitely knelt down in front of him, and even some timid guys may be scared to the point of peeing their pants. However, Steve Rogers survived, relying on his body that was much thinner than ordinary people, and did not fall to his knees until the end. Although some of his legs were trembling, this was just a physiological reaction. Chu Mew pointed to Steve Rogers at the building in the distance. It was an ordinary building, and it was the place where Steve Rogers would later be injected with the super soldier serum and become a super soldier. Definitely. Nowadays, even Captain America himself doesn't know this yet. Ah. Steve Rogers didn't know what Chu Mew was talking about. He tried his best to understand Chu Mew's words and asked Chu Mew hesitantly. Are you saying that you want me to join the army myself? Steve Rogers obviously made inferences and guesses based on Chu Mew's previous words. He thought the building Chu Mew pointed to was the location of the recruiting office. What? You don't want to? Chu Mew raised an eyebrow. He looked at Steve Rogers' expression with great amusement. From the initial confusion, he gradually turned into a melancholy worried about gains and losses. I want to too. But I'm not tall enough. Steve Rogers' tone was a little annoyed. He wished he could be taller by dozens of centimeters. If that is the case, then he wouldn't be rejected by the recruiting team again and again. Sometimes, Steve Rogers would even secretly think at home that he was even willing to use his talents to exchange for. With a height of, it would be of no use to him anyway. Chu Mew peeked into Steve Rogers' shallow thinking, and his eyes widened in shock at Steve Rogers' thoughts at the moment. Trading a cow for height. Hey, it's you. The selfless and fearless captain of the United States. This spirit of sacrifice is comparable to that of a wolf warrior. Sir, do you have a way? I mean, a way to send me into the army. Steve Rogers seemed to suddenly remember something, and immediately looked expectantly. To Chu Mew, he determined that Chin Mew must be a powerful person. Such a role. There must be a way to send people into the army. This is not a difficult task, but although Chu Mew has changed a lot of history, he does not dare to change Captain America's past easily. Believe me, as long as you stick to your ideals, you will be able to successfully enter the army and realize your ideals in the near future with your own abilities. Chu Mew's tone was full of encouragement and very serious. His sincere words made Steve Rogers blush with excitement. Hope so. Steve Rogers longed to become a soldier. After listening to Chu Mew's words, he began to feel ashamed for wanting to go through the back door. What it's like to be a soldier. It's a sacred thing. How can you think of becoming a soldier relying on connections? Bucky will definitely laugh at himself when he finds out. Come on, soldier boy. You can definitely do it. Chu Mew thought of the jokes that his fans would like to play in the future, and he patted Steve Rogers on the shoulder and greeted him again. The young Captain America in front of me gave him a shot. Soldier boy. Yes. I'm going to be a soldier boy. Steve Rogers didn't even recognize that this was Chu Mew's sudden whim. He was very excited, and his voice was full of yearning to join the army. The title Soldier Boy. It's super cool in Steve Rogers' opinion.